Between the two of them, the inside of Coates, Parker gets too heavily involved. And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Welcome, one and all, to one more special event here at the VRRC. It's the VRRC LMP3 Enduro Race, and I tell you what, it's a bit of a curveball for a lot of the drivers and a few of the commentators in here as well, because we've never done an enduro event before, but we'll break down all the details and what's cracking in a couple of minutes' time. First of all, I've got to introduce the commentary team and broadcast team for this evening. It's myself, Jack Oliphant, and I'm joined by super sub Lewis Edwards, who of course always does the broadcasts and more often than not actually is in the commentary box alongside either myself or Andy McEwan in recent months. And well, Lewis, this is certainly well, you're influential in pretty much putting all of the championships on, but the enduro event, it's got to be one that's giving you a bit of a, I wouldn't say a headache, but a bit of a test, isn't it? Because it's not quite our usual touring cars.
Yeah, it's a bit of a new format. I've been at VRRC for about a year and a half, and this is more than double the length of the previous longest race format we've ran.
The double distance ones?
Yeah, the double distance races, which were almost endurance at 40 minutes apiece. This is going to be 90 minutes, so it's something new. And we are also trialling weather. Now, we don't actually know. We could know, but Rich decided it would be a good idea for us not to know what's going to happen with the weather, so that we can be just as surprised as the audience if it decides it wants to rain or if it decides it wants to stay dry.
Yeah, I was going to say, Rich has been teasing us with that sort of cliffhanger, hasn't he? Saying, oh, nobody knows what the weather's going to do. And it's his sort of humour that he's teasing all of this, and then it just stays completely dry for the entire 90 minutes. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm looking forward to seeing how it's implemented if we do get a smattering of rain. If it's anything like England at the moment in this lovely August weather, it's pretty much guaranteed to be raining, isn't it, within the next couple of minutes. Anyway, we've got quite a few things to run through, haven't we, actually, Lewis? Because there's a bit of a change to the running order, but we haven't got previous rounds. We haven't got anything like that to be running through. But we have got a few things on the horizon, haven't we, in terms of sort of what's coming up next?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a new little track map graphic to show you the Road America circuit we're going to be racing at. Those sim racing enthusiasts or just general real-life racing fans may have spotted from the background pictures it was Road America we're going to be racing at tonight. A staple of endurance racing in pretty much any car. It's one that's loved by most sim racers, so we thought what better place to come to for our first endurance style race. And yeah, it's going to be really exciting. So there's plenty of overtaking opportunities, plenty of straights, plenty of corners. It's got a bit of everything at Road America. You a fan of it, Jack?
I am actually, yes. There's no complaints from me this week in terms of the track choice. I am a fan of Road America. I've driven a fair few on the sim. Obviously, never driven it in real life, which is a bit of a shame because it would be an epic one to do in real life. But maybe one day. It's a fantastic thing to do in the sim. As I said, you can drive it in pretty much anything from the LMP cars all the way down to sort of Mazda MX-5s and have an absolute blast around this circuit. So do recommend it at whatever sim you are on. We do have prizes, though, up for grabs in terms of this little championship special. It's not really a championship, but a one-off special. If you win this particular race, you get a lovely NGK remote control car, a prize we've never offered before. I'm not sure I'll ever offer again, but it seems to have appeared somehow on the VRRC prize pool. P2 gets the custom polo shirt, the VRRC Delta Racewear polo shirt. You can have it customized to your race number and, of course, having your initials on it. So it'd be JO98 if I won it, but I'm not allowed because I'm here commentating. And P3, you get a lovely VRRC hat. Now, I have both the custom polo shirt and the hat, and I have to say it's a really top quality material. And I'm not just saying that because it's VRRC, because VRRC actually have nothing to do with the manufacturing of it, but Delta Racewear, absolutely superb, and the VRRC design certainly makes it look very good as well. Hopefully everybody will be very happy with the prize pool, and at the end of the day, you only need to win one race to get your hands on that remote control car as well. So that'd be pretty good Christmas present, if nothing else. If you don't want to use it straight away, that's definitely a good Christmas present on the horizon if you're thinking about 6 months in advance. Right, we've got plenty more to be chatting on about over the next 90 minutes, but I think it's about that time, Lewis, that we potentially have a look at a track guide for Road America in its LMP3 Enduro.
Hello and welcome to a very overcast Road America. I'm Lewis Edwards and I'm going to be taking you through the track guide for this one-off LMP3 special event. Heading now down towards turn 1, you want to brake as late as you dare, down into 4th gear, take a late apex, avoid using too much of that exit curb as that can bounce the car, costing you momentum and lap time. Now we're into turn 3 already, down into 3rd gear. Just really important to nail the exit here. We've got 3 very long flat out sections on the track, and this is one of them, so it's really important to get that exit. And potentially a slipstream down here, but you don't want to get the dirty air through the middle part of the lap, so important to clear any cars by turn 5, which we're approaching now, down into 3rd gear. I hold it in 3rd to control the wheel spin on the exit, using up all of the road that we can. 6 is a very tricky 90-degree left-hander. The back end can try to go round on you on the exit there, so just take it easy if you need to. 7 is easily flat out, so just minimize the steering lock there. And we're heading now down towards turn 8. I take a slightly early apex here and really power through the corner using as much that exit as we can. Now we're into the carousel. It's very nearly flat out in qualifying trim, but it really spikes the tyre temperatures, so management will be required there in the race. Now we're heading towards the kink, which will be totally flat out, no problems whatsoever. Another opportunity for some slipstream. If some teammates have abandoned a lap, they can drop back and give you a slipstream there potentially. Now we're approaching Canada corner, really good overtaking opportunity here. Down into 3rd gear, get the car rotated nicely, again using as much of that exit as you can. Now 13 is comfortably flat out here, and you just want to focus on getting back over to the left hand side to open up 14 as much as you can. Now we've got a really big flat out run here, so just nail the exit as best as you can. Now we're going up the hill, it's going to plateau a little bit just here, and then we're going to reach the finish line, and that completes the lap of Road America.
Welcome back, everybody, and hopefully you enjoyed that first-person view of Road America, and you can sort of understand why everybody loves this track so much in the sim world and the real-life racing as well. we have got some more things to be talking you through as we see Joel Lask top the timing. Sorry, is that Eric Axelson? Actually, no, just gone top. Yeah, we were watching Joel Lask, but Eric Axelson actually just went and beat him with 3 purple sectors, 1 minute 56. We're expecting the lap times to plummet rather by a couple of seconds. We've got about 10 minutes left to go, so we're not getting too excited about how the order is shaping up at the moment. But Eric Axelson, Oliver Gibson, Elliot Dalton, Joel Lask, Kyle Felder's returning. All regular names that we expect to see towards the top of any timing screen in the top 5. Now you got the likes of Nicky Taylor, who's currently sat in 9th. You've got Craig Curtis, Josh Martin is currently in 14th, Jordan Taylor in 15th. So the HFT boys have decided to return for this particular special event, maybe as a warm-up to the touring cars in a couple of weeks' time. But interesting thing you brought up just as we went into that track guide, Lewis, is the fact that there are multiple tyre choices, aren't there? Now, most of the drivers out there are on the soft tyres, and some of them are on the mediums, which is a bit of a surprise. And then there's one road driver who I believe is on the hards. And to be fair, actually, I think Stuart Vickers has returned to the pits and stuck the mediums on since he made that choice, actually. So maybe it was just a mistake. But yeah, there are 3 different compounds you can choose for this. Yeah,
there are actually 4, but nobody's using the wet tyres at the moment, obviously. So yeah, definitely not optimum conditions for wet tyres. That's how you know Ferrari would be picking that. But yes, you can see Eric Axelson is on some red-walled tyres. Those would be the softs, as with Formula 1. We'll move over to Kyle Felvers, who is on the yellow-walled medium tyres, and Stuart Vickers has indeed swapped over to the medium tyres. So nobody on the hard tyres at the moment, but they are white-walled, and the wet tyres are blue-walled, so completely the same as Formula 1. And if you want to see what tyres everybody is on the HUD graphic on the left-hand side, there's a tiny little letter to the right of the lap times, which will then change the intervals in the race, and it's S, M, H, or W to denote the tyre types. So yeah, it's interesting to see we've not got just complete soft runners at the moment. There are some people risking it on the mediums.
Yeah, and if you see on the right-hand side where Lewis was just describing, if it's white with the P in the middle, that's not properly hard. That is just, that's in the pits, to be honest. So they're in the pits and they're changing their tyres potentially. Now, that is another thing we actually have to talk about, isn't it? Because we don't normally have to talk about this unless it was the double distance races, and then half the time no one really pitted that much. But strategy, Lewis, comes into play, doesn't it? Now, unfortunately, we don't have Andy McEwan here this week because he loves an endurance race. He loves a bit of strategy. I get them all mixed up in my head. So I'm relying on you a little bit here to talk us through potentially what we're expecting. You've done a lot of running in these cars. You've tested the tyres, you tested the track and everything like that, and the different weather conditions and all that sort of thing. Let's say the track temperature stays at 36 degrees, as it is at the moment. You got the softs on. How long are you expecting to be able to last on those soft tyres?
At best, 4 laps, I would say, on the soft tyres. Wow. The soft tyres are around here. They've kind of been turned into a qualifying tyre because of this corner here, the carousel. The left rear tyre temperature goes through the roof through here, which massively wears the tyres out. And once they've lost their peak grip, they will go from 100% grip at the start of the lap to 83% grip in the space of a lap. So the softs really have sharp degradation because of the high tyre temperatures on the rears round here. You can manage it with traction control, and it is going to require management on the other tyres, which don't wear out as much because you'll be scrubbing them slightly more, so you'll be putting more heat through them, but the compound itself will wear out slower on the medium and the hard tyres. So it's the debate of, are the medium tyres quick enough compared to the hard tyres to justify an extra pit stop or two, or do you want to stick on the hard tyres and just go for as long as you can? That's what the drivers should have been testing in the practice server, and of course that all goes out the window if it starts to rain.
Well, yes, exactly. We could see it rain within the first 5 minutes. We could see it rain in the last 10. We have no idea. The only person who does is Rich, obviously. So we'll see how the weather and the strategies all implement. I suppose we'll probably keep an eye on Rich's strategy, actually, Lewis. That might give us a bit of an indication of when the rain is supposed to come. I'm not sure if he just sets it within a time window, so it can be 30 to 40 minutes into the race, or whether he actually has to put it's 34 minutes into the race or something like that. We'll have to wait and see. But Oliver Gibson currently rotating the track in second place. Doing a pretty good job of it. 1:56.06. Now, you theorised that you'd be hoping for a 1:54, wouldn't you, for a pole lap round here, Lewis? But it doesn't look like they're able to quite crack into that. Nicky Taylor's improved quite a lot. He's jumped himself up to third. Looking at other people, Carl Felvis has got a green sector 1. People are still definitely improving. Rich has got a green sector 1 as well. Has anybody who's gone green sector 1 or 2? John Jones is improving his time. Nicky Taylor's just gone green again. Oliver Gibson just with a purple sector 2 as well. So we are seeing drivers going relatively quickly, but not quite hooking that ultimate lap time together. Do you think that's track conditions? Do you think that's because they've got such a small window with these tyres? Yeah,
it's very possible it could be to do with track conditions. My guesstimate lap time of a 54 was based on the fact they were doing mid 55s in the practice server, thinking they were holding a little bit in the tank. So we'll see what Oliver Gibson comes across the line with now, because he's set a very good middle sector, and it's not an improvement. His first sector was the second off, but his second and third sectors were both purple. So if he just tidies that up and gains that second in the first sector, which is entirely doable, then that would put him on a 55.7. So maybe we're looking to more towards a lower 155. So maybe a 0.3 would be a really good lap towards the end of the session.
Well, Carl Felvis has just bumped himself up into 5th position with with a green lap, basically. 3 green sectors to his name. I believe I was following Joel Lask. He had 2 green sectors, but the third one slightly let him down, I think, so he's still stuck in 7th. Oliver Gibson has tidied up that first sector. He's 3.5 tenths up from where he was this time in the last lap. Sorry, in comparison to his best lap, actually. Eric Axelson just gone purple in sector 2 as well, so we are starting to see them really turn up the wick. Carl Felvis just gone quicker than himself in sector 1 as well, so is Rich. Further down, Andy Carroll is improving, but he's just come off in sector 2. That's a bit of a shame for him. We're following the current pole man, Eric Axelson, whose first sector was not to be sniffed at. His second sector was very good. His third sector is not going to be anything, though, because he's in the pit. Oliver, maybe he's just... that's a bit of a shame, isn't it, really, Lewis? Because he was out there. He was on a really quick lap. But he knows if he finishes it, he won't have time to get in, swap his tyres, and get back out.
Yeah, I think that's definitely kind of strategy related. He obviously thinks he can go quicker than that lap he was already on a new set of tyres in 2 laps time, because you need a couple of laps to get the tyres in. So he's going to have a pretty sharp out lap. Oh, yeah.
Oliver Gibson getting snaky on the rear end there, wasn't he? He was too keen because he is up. He's 3.5 tenths up, in fact, going into that final corner. He's going to come across the line. Is he going to take pole position? Yes, he is. So he's got in onto the pole position, the first man of the 1 minute 55s with a 1:55.8. There are a few of the drivers out there who are looking rather quick though. Nicky Taylor's nearly half a second up on his best time. That would put him just about in the 55s, maybe not quite quick enough, although he's doing pretty well. Nicky Taylor rounds out the final corner. Ooh, not using all the track and getting a little bit squirrely on the exit as well, but as he climbs up the hill, what has he got in the locker? How hard is his right foot stamping down on that power? Elliot Dalton beats from the third, but Nicky Taylor takes it straight back.
Yeah, it's a good lap from Nicky, up to 3rd place on his return to VRRC competition. It seems like he, among quite a lot of drivers, is struggling for traction at that final corner. We've seen quite a few drivers now, especially in the practice before this, really losing a lot of time, just getting it a bit too sideways on the exit there, maybe a little bit too trigger happy and a bit over optimistic with their traction control settings for this car, I think. But yeah, it's proving tricky for the drivers. Be interesting to see how they manage it in the rain.
Yeah, that's very true, actually. I keep forgetting that, That's going to really surprise me. I'm going to think something's wrong with the stream I'm watching or something. These LMP cars, though, there's an awful lot of downforce. They're not... I mean, I haven't driven the LMP on a set of Corsa, don't get me wrong, all the improvements that obviously VRRC has made to them necessarily. But whenever I have driven LMP cars, once you get used to the speed, they're not the most horrible thing to drive in the world, are they? They're not the hardest, I should say, actually. Yeah, they're quite fun. As long as you get used to downforce and get used to the fact that everything happens quite quickly, they're relatively stable cars, aren't they? Just to touch on that before we get going into the final steps of qualifying.
Yeah, absolutely. These cars, we picked them because they were very easy to get around, but they are actually more difficult than you'd think to fully master. You can very easily get a good lap time out of it, but they're very tricky to get an excellent lap time out of them. You've really got to be careful with the way you apply the power and kind of your lines through the corners. So in the track guide earlier, you could see through some corners I was taking a really early apex and powering through the corner. Sometimes I was squaring the corner off, sometimes I was just in a standard apex, sometimes it was really late. You really have to think about where you kind of place the car in relation to the apex and how you're putting the power down to get that real pole position worthy time out of the car. And I think the thing I see people struggling a lot with is just keeping the minimum speed and the momentum going. They think because it's a downforce car, you go very quickly, you smash the brake, you stop very quickly, you turn, you smash the pedal, and then you're already accelerating very quickly towards the next corner. But actually, a lot of lap time can be found in just keeping the minimum speeds up and keeping it smooth.
Yeah, definitely. Elliot Daltonez, so you're talking about where to place each other's cars. Well, he's placed it into third place. He's gotten a really good time, and the checkered flag has dropped, so Nicky Taylor is not going to be able to beat him. Carl Felvers has got not such a great Sector 1, and he's not that far off of his best time, though. Eric Axelsson looks to be trying to gun for that pole position. He's on the front row of the grid at the moment, but he wants one better, obviously, to take that pole back away. It doesn't look like, I feel like he should have finished his lap, but he decided to come in for those tyres. It doesn't seem to be working for him quite yet. Josh Martin has jumped himself up to 8th place, by the way. So he's done pretty good on that final lap. Andy Carroll comes across the line. Now he jumps himself almost into the top 10, just behind Alok Iyengar. Here is the current pole position man, Oliver Gibson. His lap time is nothing really to write home about. It could be a slight improvement if he gets across the times. Now he's crossed the checkered flag. It's not an improvement, but only by 100th of a second. And Eric Axelsson comes across the line, doesn't improve. So it's going to be Oliver Gibson on pole position. What can Kyle Felvers do from 5th? It's been a pretty poor lap in terms of getting the most amount of it out, and he comes across the line with a 1 minute 56.5, 0.3 of a second off of his best time. Elliot Daltonez is parked on the side of the road after having a green Sector 2, and doesn't look like he's going to improve. So I don't think anybody else is on our lap. So it's Elliot Daltonez we're waiting for, and Reese Bell, actually. Now, what is Reese Bell doing right now? He was the one, actually, sorry, off at Sector 2. My apologies. So he's not improving either. So I think it's about that time as the last couple of drivers come into the pit lane. Lewis, we're going to shoot to a very quick advert break before we're back, before the start of this one-off enduro race. Welcome back, everybody, and I have a very happy pole sitter alongside me in the commentary box. It's Oliver Gibson. Oliver, big congratulations on getting that pole position. That must be, well, I was about to say set you up well for the championship. Of course, it's a one-off event, but you do get a prize at the end of this one, so you must be pretty happy.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been on pole, so that's good. And it's been a while since I raced, actually, so it's a nice way to get back into it and a big confidence booster. So, yeah, just hoping the race goes well now.
Yes, I seem to remember you getting a couple of pole positions in the touring car series that we had most recently, don't you? In the BMW, did you get pole around Brands Hatch? I'm just struggling to remember now.
Yes, the Indy one, I think.
Yes, no, absolutely. But the LMP is a bit of a different beast, isn't it? What's it like driving this around Road America?
I mean, it's a completely different thing. It's what I'm used to, so I mean that might explain why I'm a bit quicker in this than I am in the touring cars. But yeah, it's just a completely completely different kettle of fish to drive. Much more grip, much more downforce, much more speed in general. So it's just a case of keeping the tyres in the right window and keeping the wear down. And fingers crossed, the weather is kind to me for this one.
Yeah, well, we're all a bit questioning what the weather's going to do. It's one of the biggest talking points of the next 90 minutes, I think. But you versus Eric Axelson, Elliot Dalton, Nicky Taylor, Carl Feld. I mean, it's a completely stacked grid. I can carry on probably and name all 15 people. There's a potential of winning this one. But you and Eric Axelson were very close in that time, weren't you? How much of a relief was it to see that his final time wasn't quite quick enough?
Oh, I mean, I crossed the line. I saw he was behind me. I was like, "Oh, please, here we go." And then it didn't come up, and I was like, "Oh, okay, might be all right." And then I was waiting for Elliot, Nicky, Kyle, whoever to get it, and luckily, otherwise I wouldn't have been as confident.
I was going to say confidence is key, though. You're confident you'll be walking away from this round with an NGK remote control car?
I hope so, but like you said, it's a very stacked grid, so plenty of people to try and fend off and keep behind me. And of course, like I said before, the weather. Just a matter of if I'm on the right tyres at the right time.
Well, we look forward to seeing whether the strategy pays off for you. Oliver, I'm not going to ask exactly what that is because people could probably try and steal it. So, Oliver, good luck for the next 90 minutes. Maybe we'll be having a chat to you later on.
I hope so. Thank you.
Right, that was Oliver Gibson. And, well, we have about 3 minutes now to get through quite a lot of the stuff. If you're used to staying with us right up until the end of the broadcast, then you're probably used to seeing us running through what's coming up next in terms of the VRRC community. Well, we're going to do that now for you. So the fun race is coming up. This is organised, I think, by Eric Axelson these days. And it's Sunday, the 6th of July. It's around Watkins Glen in a Ferrari 296 GT3 car. Fixed setup. Anybody can join this. You don't have to be part of the VRRC community. If you're thinking about joining in, you're looking like you want to have a bit of a go and see if you're quick compared to the other competitors who are in the community already, then the fun race is a fantastic place to start. So that's Sunday, the 6th of July and 8 p.m. British summertime. Apparently it's summer here. I wouldn't know, though. Next up is the time attacks. And there we go. It's around the Anglesey circuit, a fantastic circuit, actually, in the Radical SR3. Now, that is a bit of a difficult car to get to grips with, but that's okay because you can do as many laps as you want around Anglesey over the 2 weeks, actually, starting on the 24th of July. So it's already actually in process. Fixed setup, so don't worry, no one's going to have a better setup than you or anything like that. You can just get out there in the Radical SR3 and you can just keep lapping until you get a satisfactory time. And that, I think, is available to everyone as well. But you can only win a prize if you are a VRRC member. And last but not least, because I think we are about to go into the first race, we want to have a chat about the touring cars, the next proper championship that we've got here at the VRRC. We're using a similar array of cars. They all look very similar, but they will probably all handle slightly better than they're used to, as we've had yet another couple of months to work on them and try them getting them to drive a little bit nicer. And we've also thrown the Cupra in there that we're so used to using on the touring car championships, but we've bopped it in comparison to all the others. And we look forward to this one starting in 2 weeks' time on the 16th of August around Magny Cours, and they'll go to Brno Circuit, Catalonia, Red Bull Ring, Hockenheim. They're going a little bit of a European tour in comparison to the British tour that we did in the last touring car season 4. We're very much looking forward to that one. There's been plenty of work going on behind the scenes, hasn't there, Lewis, in terms of getting that touring cars up to speed. And of course, sorry, just to finish off, we are returning to the normal race format of 2 20 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of work has been put in behind the scenes that you don't necessarily get to see. I know Rich and Eric, who won't be racing in this championship, so he's given everyone else a bit of a chance. They've put in countless hours to try and get the cars to be nice and equal between all of them. And I've had messages from people saying, I don't really know what to choose because they're all quite even. I like all of them. So yeah, that's a really wonderful problem to give people, so they can happily pick whatever they like. But everybody was forced to pick some LMP3s this time, and we're going to see how they get on in just over 3/4 of a minute's time.
Yes, we are, and I think everybody's taking the mick out of me in the chat because I said 6th of July potentially. It's 6th of August, this Sunday coming, basically. I do apologise if I made that wrong. I don't know actually what the graphic actually said. I'm guessing it said the 6th of August because I probably was the one who messed it up. Anyway, we are about to go into this 90-minute endurance event. The first one we've had on VRRC for, well, since I've been commentating on it anyway, for about well over 2 years now, I think. Oliver Gibson on pole position, Eric Axelsson in second place. Can he sign off his well, he's only having a sabbatical from VRRC racing, but he'd love to go out on a win, wouldn't he? Elliot Daltonez and Nicky Taylor are also in the mix, as well as Carl Felvers. And as I said, a completely stacked grid. Well, the engine notes are up, the lights are on, and we are racing. And Eric Axelsson, known for getting a good start, but actually in the second phase is Oliver Gibson, who gets a rocket off the line. In fact, the top 4 have all done pretty evenly. The likes of 5th backwards, maybe not quite so well, but we're going into the first corner now, and it's Oliver Gibson who will be holding on to that first place. Eric Axelsson has to slot in with second. Now, it's really important, and we didn't mention this one because we didn't want to jinx it, but everyone needs to get through the first lap. It's more important in an endurance race than it is in a sprint. You don't want to ruin it, and Kenny Press has already found himself facing the incorrect direction. He's going off on the outside of the track there. Not sure if there was contact between him and somebody else, but Oliver Gibson has had an absolute flyer here, Lewis. Up the inside, though, Rich Hayden. Is this on Joel Lask trying to overtake him, or is he trying to defend from him? Not entirely sure, but he goes to a massive lunge. Somebody's off on the right-hand side as well. Nicky Taylor's off the road. There is Nicky Taylor. Eric Axelsson is falling down the order as well. So Eric Axelsson coming back onto the track. Massive drama between himself and Nicky Taylor, I can only assume, because both of them off the circuit, and they were running in second and third. So that's pretty big news, isn't it, Lewis, as we go halfway through this first lap?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Nicky just missed his braking point. People are missing it because Josh Martin's just done it directly in front as well there. Yeah, people seem to be missing their braking points a little bit on this first lap. They are going to be very full of fuel at the moment. Obviously, fuel strategy is a thing that's going to pan out in this race, as well as the tyres, because you can obviously refuel at the pit stop, so people will have calculated their best strategies. As we see Carl Felvers going immediately for a move on Josh Martin, right the way up to the grass there, still side by side, and he's just about got the move done as All's contact further back.
Tell you what, fair play to Carl Felvers, but I'll sing his praises in a minute because Joel Lask is facing the wrong way and you can't move in that position. Oh, thank goodness gracious me, he's going to just swing it round. He's all the way back in 14th place as a consequence. Rich Hayden, I think, was another driver that was involved with that one. So I remember there was a little bit of drama between those two in the final round of the previous championship that we did. I can't believe that I've forgotten what championship we've just finished. It was only 2 weeks ago, but anyway, there was drama there between those two, and it's drama again here in the endurance. And Josh Martin's currently racing in 4th place, but I have to say, fair play to Kyle Felvers, Lewis, around the outside there, and to get himself, well, it was around the inside in the end, but he went the long way round to do it, didn't he?
Yeah, he pulled off a pretty standard road American move. You've got to be a bit punchy to make a move into Canada corner, and that's exactly what he did. And it looked like he didn't push Josh Martin off the track or anything. He gave him the bare minimum of room, but just enough, as it looks like Reece Bell and Craig Curtis now fighting over 5th place after all of the carnage that happened ahead of them. They've obviously just stayed out of trouble, and they're going at it now for 5th place.
GT500, that's the championship. I genuinely had to look that up then. That's a bit embarrassing, isn't it? Yeah, Craig Curtis is, I was going to mention him anyway, because he's one of the few drivers that decided to go onto the hard tyres. And he's found himself, maybe through a little bit of fortune, maybe through great traffic control, I'm not entirely sure. I haven't really been keeping that close an eye on him. He's found himself up to 5th position, ahead of Reece Bell, just behind, well, I say just behind Josh Martin. He's obviously a little way down the road on Josh Martin. But we've been talking about whether you go mediums or whether you go hard, Lewis. Well, Craig Curtis, you would argue, is in the prime position here because he's in the hard. He'll be able to go longer than everybody else. He'll have clear track ahead of him. And he won't have to worry about a pit stop anytime soon, whereas everybody else will have to, won't they? Joel Lask is closely racing with, is this John Jones he's trying to overtake? Now, we know John Jones is a king of the reverse grid races, but we don't have a reverse grid race here, so he's just going to have to try and deal with making race 1 as best he possibly can. Andy Carroll is being overtaken by Nicky Taylor, who are covering Nicky Taylor, and Josh Martin is in the pits already.
Don't tell me that's another drive-through for Josh. He's had so many. We'll see if he pulls into a pit box or not very shortly. You can see the mechanics racing to pick up a car, and it looks like he's driving past them all.
Oh, it's a drive-through.
So it's a drive-through for either a... It must be a jump start, because I doubt he's exceeded track limits this many times in 2 laps. So not the start Josh would have wanted. Oh, I say track limits, but he was definitely very much off there. But Nicky Taylor already back up into 8th place. So on the recovery drive, him and Eric are actually in 7th and 8th now. So they are making their way back through the field. But Oliver Gibson is having, well, probably the dream start best he could have imagined. He's out there setting purple sectors every lap, gaps up to 3.5 seconds. You know, he's just chilling at the moment. He can control the pace, he can control his tyre temps, control the tyre wear. He must be loving life. I'm assuming his heart rate's still through the roof, as it usually is, but he's definitely in a great position at the moment.
Yeah, you never know. He could end up at about half an hour's time, maybe, or maybe 10 minutes from the end of the race, pitting in just to give the pit crew some practice. You never know. But he is absolutely flying out there, isn't he? Elliot Dalton-Ayres is probably relatively happy that he's up to 2nd place. But I think I was a bit of accusing. I have to quickly apologise, because I think you were right, Lewis. I don't think Nicky Taylor and Eric Axelson actually had it coming together. I think they probably just ended up outbreaking each other. I think what might have happened is Eric Axelson outbroke himself, and Nicky Taylor decided to try and follow him and break as late as he could as well. Jordan Taylor, though, that was a very odd place to be, because he was right on the exit, and as he goes into the final corner, he's going to fall back down into 8th place. But it just looked like he missed his braking zone going into Canada.
Yeah, I think he did make a little mistake there. I did see what happened to Nicky. He either missed his braking point or got kind of caught out by people in front of him braking much earlier, because you could see he dived to the outside onto the runoff on the right-hand side for the corner, just to avoid driving into somebody. So I think what's happened is both he and Eric have missed the braking points and just kind of had the same accident, if you like. Because Eric was, well, there might have been contact between Eric and a car further up, we don't know, but yeah, I think Nicky definitely missed his braking point. We don't fully know what happened to Eric there, but he has unfortunately become known for occasionally making these mistakes in the braking zone early on in the race. That's a bit deep on the brakes from Rich, but he's just about got the place, I think. Oh no, Andy's up the inside.
Oh my days.
Oh no, that's contact from Joel.
Oh no. Well, that's probably, again, I said there was previous between those two, and I don't think that that one's going to help. Oh, there we go. Joel has actually slowed down. He's realised that he's bumped Rich off there, so he's letting him back through, but it's just happening one too many times, isn't it, between those two, whether it's one way or the other. Nicky Taylor and Eric Axelson, the fight ignites once more, and well, one thing I like to see these two drivers going at it, because they're quite polar opposites in terms of driving style. Nicky Taylor very aggressive, Eric Axelson very smooth, calm and composed usually, but both of them making mistakes early on in the race. And you're right, Eric has got slightly gaining a reputation for making these early race breaking mistakes. He's made them in a few championships now, the GTV3 from memory, the touring cars a fair few times, and of course here at the LMPs, and I probably did it in the GT500 as well. That seems to ring a bell that he made a few mistakes. So he's maybe just needs a bit of a sabbatical from racing. That's why he's decided to not do the touring cars, so he can really refocus. You're sort of right in saying that he's been putting a lot of work in behind the scenes, though, hasn't he, in testing and bopping and everything like that for VRRC, Lewis, and which is great to see a few more people get involved with that.
Yeah, absolutely. We let very certain members of the community who we trust to help improve the quality of the racing that we offer to people, because obviously people pay their hard-earned money to race with us, so we always want to make sure we're offering as good a service as we can to everybody. And yeah, Eric has done, I couldn't even begin to tell you how much work he puts in behind the scenes that goes completely unnoticed and uncredited, unfortunately, most of the time. He was definitely majorly involved in the last Touring Car Championship and getting the cars as close as they were together, and has done exactly the same for this upcoming championship. And I believe he's also going to be helping run the championship itself, because Rich is doing a very good job with his simulator hire, which you do with him, and building sims for people. That's it, kind of taking up most of his time because it's going so well. Rich is a bit strapped for time, so needs to kind of lighten his workload so he can focus on that. And Eric has been doing a phenomenal job with running our fun races at the moment, as we mentioned earlier. So he's also decided that he'd like to take on that extra responsibility as well. But the amount of work that he puts in is, it's a wonder he has any time to practice for these races as well.
Well, maybe he isn't having as much time as he used to, and that's why we're seeing these mistakes, as Craig Curtis is really holding off Nicky Taylor here. And I think Nicky Taylor is getting a little bit frustrated with it, because he's trying to move his car all over the place, and as Craig Curtis on those hard tyres is defending for all his life going into the first corner. There was a bit of contact out the last corner, but it looks like Nicky Taylor's going to have it. So is Eric Axelson, and I think Craig Curtis probably knew that was a fight not worth having just yet between two drivers who are extremely fast, not only around this circuit, but just generally as well. So, yeah, Craig Curtis gives it up, but he's still in 7th place, and he's still on those hard tyres, leading the driver on those hards. In fact, there are only two, to be fair. It's Andy Carroll, who's in 9th, so actually not doing too bad a job. If we're talking recovery drives, well, Nicky Taylor and Eric Axelson are the two drivers that have probably had the best recovery so far, because they're up to 5th and 6th. So Nicky Taylor started in 3rd place, I believe it was, and he's up to 5th. He's back up to 5th. How far has he got to catch up to the next driver, though? About 8 seconds, actually, so it could be quite some time before we see him. Rich Hayden and Joel Lask nose to tail again, and that starts to give you a little bit of anxiety, but Rich Hayden can't blame Joel for going off the circuit that time, can he? Because he just goes straight off, and unfortunately it comes back on the road behind Josh Martin. Eric Axelson versus Nicky Taylor. The feud continues.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that was wide from Eric there, all the way across the grass. Yeah, it's interesting to see that people are quite easily able to make their way through cars and through traffic, so that will benefit those on the medium tyres. But the pace differential to the hard tyres is not very much. Craig is doing a really good job there in 7th, and he's not exactly running a slow pace at the moment. He's running a high 58 as kind of an average lap. His best lap is a 58.6, and his last lap was a 59.0. So that's the kind of pace he's running at. So he's more than happy to let the other two in front get away, because he obviously believes that those hard tyres are going to last considerably longer and save him maybe a final pit stop or just less time in the pits, because he can take the tyres for longer. So I think he must be pretty happy with being in clean air and just pumping in some solid lap times at the moment. But I have to say, Oliver Gibson is an absolute class of one at the top of the field at the moment.
Stunning, isn't it?
He's lapping very consistently in the low 1:56s, which is quicker than everybody else did in qualifying. his 56.0, I think, is quicker than second place Eric Axelson's qualifying time, if I'm not mistaken. It's certainly very close. And Elliott has only now just broken into the 56s. He's been running in the low 1 minute 57s. So he's beginning to make some lap time progress up there in second place, running a different coloured car to usual. He's had a few colour schemes in the past. He originally had kind of black and red with a dash of white on it originally.
Oh, he did, yeah.
And then in the touring cars, when he joined up with Phoenix, he obviously went to his white, orange and purple livery, which then kind of transferred over to GT500, which then he drove Ben Jemison's car, so he had the Phoenix carbon with orange livery, and now I think he's gone for one that maybe more reflects his real life driving. Elliott does karting. So I think this colour scheme reflects his real-life kart a bit more. So I think that's why he's gone for that. But it's doing him good in second place at the moment. And he's obviously got his new Camus direct drive wheel, courtesy of the guys at Phoenix Sim Racing. So that's obviously going to help him. But I think mainly in the rain, he certainly looked quick, as well as Oliver Gibson, in that practice server when it was raining. So I think it'll be interesting to see if it does rain, because we still don't know if it's going to rain, let alone when. It'll be interesting to see how the pace differs for people. Looks like Nicky Taylor is catching up to Reece Bell now, though. Gap's only 4/10, and it looks like he's going to be shaping for a move, but not if he gets a bit of a bad run through there. Dropping Eric Axelson a little bit, though, so Eric may be conserving his tyres and potentially suffering with success ballast a little bit there.
Oliver Gibson's just gone purple in Sector 1 since we've taken the cameras away from him. He's on another level, like you said. It's incredible, to be honest. But, yeah, you're right. I think, well, maybe Eric Axelson. I don't know what these cars are like when driving in traffic. I mean, when we watch F1 and stuff like that, Lewis, whenever you're driving in sort of turbulent air, they almost tell the drivers to back off, the engineers, don't they? Because they're overheating brakes and they're overheating engines and stuff like that. I don't know if that really comes into play here. What I will say, once I'm confident that Nicky Taylor's not going to lunge on Reece Bell, I doubt he's going to lunge through the carousel here. So I was going to mention this earlier on as we saw a few mistakes. Oh, Eric Axelson, Josh Martin going through an Andy Carroll. Nice little clean move there. Andy Carroll saw that one coming on his rear view mirrors on the left-hand side. And Josh Martin gets a nice little move up to 10th position. But the ambient temperature, the road temperature stayed the same. The road temperature 35 degrees. That's the same as it was in qualifying, as we see Eric Axelson versus Nicky Taylor again. But the ambient temperature has gone down by 10 degrees since qualifying. It was at 25 in qualifying. Now it's only at 15. So that could be a sign of weather to come, shall we say. But I think the genius that is Craig Curtis, what could all of a sudden have him potentially verging on, well, leading this race, is if everybody has to come into the pits on those mediums in the next 10 minutes or so. Let's for instance say, I don't know how long it will be realistically, but let's say it's in the next 10 minutes. Apart from Craig Curtis, and then the rain comes out in 15 minutes. And all of a sudden, Craig Curtis he comes in and puts those wet tyres. Everybody has to come in again to put those wet tyres on. And all of a sudden, Craig Curtis has basically saved himself a pit stop. That could be a stroke of genius. You never know. The timing works his way. Jordan Taylor versus Craig Curtis. Again, some of these recovery drives are giving us some entertaining overtaking, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're spot on. If the next transition is to wet tyres, Craig Curtis could be in the lead if that comes after people have made a pit stop. Oh, that's a dive from Jordan Taylor. Has he made it stick? Not quite. Craig's just about managed to get underneath him there, but that was nearly move of the race so far. He just needed to break that little bit earlier, but he'll have that information now, will Jordan. So I think if I was Craig, I'd be pretty nervous that it's going to happen again at the next major braking zone, maybe into Canada Corner if Jordan gets a good run through here. He's just going to need to try and stay out of the dirty air, which I don't think is too bad in these LMP3s. Certainly in these you don't get the overheating kind of disadvantage of running in the slipstream that you do in a real life car. A lot of the overheating parameters just aren't programmed into the game. But you can definitely overheat your brakes, but that's usually from incorrect aerodynamic brake blanking settings, so controlling the air that goes to the brakes. That's usually what causes that. Or just stamping on the pedal a bit much. But Jordan Taylor, he thought about it, didn't quite have the gap to make it stick there though.
No, well, I think, here goes Eric Axelson and versus Nicky Taylor, isn't it? It's not even against Reese Bell. This is a fifth position. And Eric Axelson, I think, is going to use Reese Bell as a bit of a bump stop here. And he might even lunge both of them. Eric Axelson, no, just overtakes Nicky Taylor. I say just overtakes, it's a pretty good feat in itself. But the problem that Eric now has is he's the one who has to get past Reese Bell. And as Nicky has proven as one of the best overtakers at VRRC, it's not that easy to get past Reese Bell. So it doesn't necessarily mean just because Eric has got past Nicky that it's going to be plain sailing to get past Reese. Jordan Taylor, I think the problem that he might have against Craig Curtis is the fact that he's shown what he's going to want to do. Speaking of the Taylors, Nicky Taylor, no relation of course, but goes up the inside and takes that position back from Eric Axelson. I hope this is going to be a race-long battle between those two. It's really exciting, to be honest. If they hold each other up too much, then we could have the likes of Jordan Taylor be invited to the party as well, but he's struggling to get past Craig Curtis, who goes a little bit wide. Jordan gets a little bit of a tighter angle, but it's back to the right-hand side for them. Like I was saying, though, Lewis, the problem that Jordan may be having is that he's trying to throw too many bluffs. He's trying to do too many fakes at Craig Curtis, and if he just doesn't hit him off the circuit, that might help as well. Luckily, Jordan Taylor, yeah, there we go, lets him back on and lets him back through as well. But here comes Joel Lask to try and take advantage of the poor driving by Jordan Taylor. Good sportsmanship, albeit poor driving. Joel Lask versus Jordan Taylor. Jordan Taylor ends up in a wall. He can't really go side by side there. I was thinking which one's going to give. I didn't want to say anything, but Jordan Taylor has ended up in the wall. Yeah,
going side by side through the kink there is always a risky strategy, and I think that's going to be Jordan's race over. It sounds like the car engine has died, so I think he broke the engine in that collision. So unfortunately, that looks like that'll be the end for Jordan. But yeah, trying to go side by side through the kink there. If that's me, that's always a move I'll be backing out of, even if someone's trying to make the move on me. It's so easy to do what Jordan did and go wide there on your own. If you're going to try and do it with another car alongside you, that's a very difficult one to make. But Joel did make the move, so yeah, Jordan just tried to hang it out round the outside there, but Oliver Gibson out front. His best lap is now into the 55s. He's lapped half a second quicker than Elliott last lap. The gap is nearly 10 seconds. Yeah, that's a pretty brilliant drive for 21 minutes worth of racing.
Yeah, we have got an hour and 10 minutes to go, of course. Here is Josh Martin versus Craig Curtis. So Josh trying to go around the outside of Craig. Nice and late on the brakes. He doesn't get anywhere near the apex, and I don't think he's going to hold on to that position, does he? So Craig Curtis just about holds on for the time being, and well, Josh finding out that it's also quite difficult to overtake Craig. It's not just a problem that Jordan Taylor was having. A fair few drivers had that problem as well. Nicky Taylor and Eric Axelson. Nicky Taylor's got past Reese Bell, by the way, but Eric Axelson hasn't followed him through. So the current order is Nicky in 4th, Reese in 5th, and Eric in 6th. As we are currently watching. And nice little battles all over the circuit. 3 drivers that aren't in any kind of battle is Oliver Gibson, Elliott Dalton-Ayres, and as Adrian Felvers has sort of slightly pointed out in the chat, that we haven't seen much of Kyle Felvers. That's because he's not doing anything, Adrian, unfortunately. I know you're not outright complaining, but and I'm sure you can understand. But I'm just trying to let everyone know that it's not because we've forgotten about him. It's not because we don't like looking at his car. I'm sure it looks fantastic. Well, we're seeing it now. It does look fantastic. But he's not really any kind of close race compared to the rest of the field. But shout out to South Coast Karting. Kyle's a brand new sponsor, apparently, somewhere on the car there. I can't quite see it, I'll be honest. The livery doesn't quite lend itself to showing off the sponsors. That's why you get so many boring white cars, isn't it, there, Lewis? And the likes of the Touring Car Championship and stuff like that. They went through a couple of years where the whole grid was plagued with boring liveries because everybody just had so many sponsors on. And you can't see a sponsor if you got a funky pattern on your car. So, yeah, it's a bit of a shame. But Kyle Felvers here, currently lapping in 3rd place. So no matter how his car looks, it's going very well.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get your sponsors seen, don't put them on a Dazzle camo livery, because it makes it incredibly hard to see. But yeah, he's just putting the laps in, really. He's nearly able to match the pace of Elliot Dalton-Ayres. It's only a 2/10 swing in Elliot's favour on the last lap. Their last laps are separated by a 10th, so really he's kind of holding the gap to Elliot at the moment. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if there is some weather to come in, any of these gaps can be negated very quickly by somebody picking a better strategy to switch on to those wet weather tyres if needed. And you know, we don't know what tyres they're going to go to at the pit stop. We don't even know when they're going to pit. So there's plenty of variables still to play out, which could mean that Kyle can make more progress on Elliot, especially in endurance races. It's very easy to actually gain or lose time on your competition from other factors that aren't just your raw pace. It's quite tricky to manage all of those factors like traffic, the weather, fuel strategy, tyre strategy. So Adrian says it's on the front left of the car. So if we have a good look for it, pretty hard to see.
No, I can see the Mech Cup and I can see Aegon, I think. I can't quite see it. But apparently it's where he works. So we'll give a shout out to South Coast Karting. Is that on the...
There you go.
There we go, South Coast Karting. It's yeah, you see, you would never get that kind of camera angle and exposure if it wasn't esports. But there we go. Kyle, make it a little bit bigger next time. Make it somewhere that isn't completely hidden from view in every single camera angle ever. But yeah, South Coast Karting, big them up. Right, so Carl Felder is 5 seconds behind Elliot Dalton-Ayres, who's 10 seconds behind Oliver Gibson now, who's just lapping consistently in the low 56s, is still consistently faster than anybody. Kyle has broken into the 56s now himself, actually, to be fair to him. But Oliver Gibson has set a 55.8, so it's quicker than his pole position time is what he's managed. And considering, maybe, is that a suspicion? Am I reading too much into this here, Lewis, in saying that Oliver Gibson, if he's able to set purple sectors and everything like that, with these medium tyres on, is he burning his fuel off? Is it really, really light now, that car? And as a consequence, are we going to see a pit stop from him shortly, do you think?
Well, given the gap in qualifying between Oliver and the others was really not that large, to see the gap so big now in race trim, I think it wouldn't be too far-fetched to assume that his car is running a lot less fuel than the people around him. Oh no, I think Reece Bell has made a bit of a mistake or something, because that's allowed Eric Axelsen through. So he's back up to 5th now, Eric, so he's on the recovery. But yeah, I think it wouldn't be too unreasonable to assume that Oliver's car's running a fair bit lighter than everyone else's, or he really just has brilliant pace. So we will see when they're coming in for their first stops, but they're definitely going to want to extend this past half an hour, I would say, into the race. So when that countdown goes below 1 hour, I think that would be ideal, because then, ignoring the weather, they know they can make it on 3 pit stops. I think from memory, it's something like 37 litres of fuel is the standard amount of fuel you can put in the car and not lose any time from the tyre changes. So you can fit your tyres, put 37 litres of fuel in, and then the second that your tyres are done, you're off the jacks and you can go. So I think they'll have definitely figured this out, because drivers were doing this for a fun race months ago. So I think they'll definitely be doing it when there are prizes on the line. I think they will know exactly what their fuel strategy is, how much they can put in, and how much they want to waste time in the pits. But Oliver Gibson pumping out more purple sectors, so he's clearly not finished with that.
Everybody's putting in green sectors, though, aren't they, to be fair? Elliot's just gone green sector 1, 2. Nicky Taylor sector 1. Eric sector 1. Josh sector 1. Craig sector 1. Everybody is going faster now. So I reckon that fuel, the fact that the car's lighter, is certainly playing more of a factor than the tyres going up. I think the fuel is going to dictate when people come in rather than the tyres at this point, isn't it, really?
Yeah, that's one of the key things you need to understand in serious endurance racing is, are you limited by your tyres or are you limited by the effect of the fuel? So I did a Spa 24-hour race in a couple of weeks ago, and we found that it didn't matter what the tyres were like. The tyres could be at 40% grip at the end of the stint all over, and we would still be miles quicker because the fuel had burnt off. In a GT3, you're starting with 103 litres of fuel, so the car is very, very slow and heavy when you're starting out there, and it begins to just ramp up as you go along through the stint. And then when we got to about 8 laps to go, the times really started to tumble. When you had 8 laps of fuel left, that's when we started to see the lap times really coming down quite drastically. There will be a point on these cars at which the lap times really start to come down, and I think that's kind of the point we're beginning to reach now. So it'll be interesting to see when people are going to start bailing for the pits, because I don't think it's going to be too long before we start seeing a round of pit stops now. We're seeing some orangey sectors now, so I wonder if people are potentially on some in-laps or if they've just overdone the tyres. As I say that, Oliver Gibson's put in another purple sector 2, and Josh Martin purple in the first sector, so never mind. They are going very quickly. It's just either purple or it's not an improvement.
Yeah, Josh Martin, loving Sector 1 right now, isn't he? He was 4.5 tenths up. I think he then made a small mistake, lost 2 tenths, but he's still enjoying himself out there, that's for sure. We'll keep an eye on what Josh does. Craig Curtis, I assume, had a bit of a mistake, because he was flying high, wasn't he? He was ahead of, I think last time we saw him, he was battling with the likes of Josh Martin and Joel Lask. Then all of a sudden we come back to him and he's behind Rich Hayden, and that wasn't just now, that was a couple of laps ago that we last saw that, before we started whittering on about tyre strategies and stuff like that. So I think Craig Curtis maybe had a little bit of an off, which is a bit of a shame for him, because those hard tyres were doing him a fantastic job. But they could still do him a fantastic job. Like we said, there's a lot more that can come from advantages you can gain in an endurance race, not just from being quick on the road. Realistically, you probably want to be operating about 85% of your absolute max capacity limits, don't you, in an endurance race? Because if you're at your absolute max capacity in terms of the fastest last time you can possibly do, that means you're pretty much on the edge of grip constantly. And for an endurance event, that's not really what you want. You want consistency, don't you? So operating at, say, 85, 90%, obviously how good a driver are means you can take it closer to the 100%, but I would say 85 to 90 is probably the average. That means you can do that lap time every single time for 45 minutes before you have to come in and swap drivers or swap tyres or anything like that. And that's a lot more important in endurance racing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the kind of the key factor in endurance racing is, I think it was kind of Audi's motto at Le Mans, was just spend as little time in the pit lane as possible. And you spend time in the pit lane for stopping to fill the car up with fuel, changing the tyres, damage and penalties. So yeah, if you drive at a lesser capacity, you're smooth, you save a bit of fuel here and there, you'll save your tyres, so you need to change them less often. You're less likely to get penalties from track limits and other cars if you're leaving a little bit of margin just to be sure. You're just trying to keep yourself out the pit lane, and driving at a slightly less capacity will definitely help that, and especially with consistency. We're more likely to see errors the further we get on into this race, where people's, for lack of a better word, attention span just isn't quite at 110% like it needs to be at the start of the race. And then, have we got Stuart Vickers in the pits?
Yes, he is. Stuart Vickers is in the pits. Now, Jordan Taylor's DNF'd after he wiped his car out, but Stuart Vickers, we have already had Josh Martin come through the pits, but that was for a drive-through penalty, not because of any kind of strategy. Stuart Vickers, though, in the pits, and I believe Alok Iyengar has also been in the pits, looking at my timing screen, I think. So, I think he came into the pits on the first lap, potentially. So, yeah, but it was a while ago. So, Stuart Vickers, first driver to blink. Are we going to see a few more dominoes fall?
I think we possibly are. One thing I've been following with Craig Curtis is it was really his overall pace level that was the reason he was dropping down. He just hadn't really been able to hook the laps up. He was kind of on mid 58 for a lot of that stint. But now he's starting to get down to those mid 57s now. So the tyres are coming to Craig a lot better now. So I'm assuming he's very heavy on fuel as well, which will be influencing that. So he's going to be hoping to get to about 45 minutes to go, I would say, and then he can do the race on one more pit stop, as Stuart's, I think he's just trying to get out the way, or is there some kind of car issue there?
He could get out of the way without having to do this, couldn't he? Maybe the fact that he was in the pits was a hardware issue more than anything, and that's what he's struggling with, because I have no idea. This isn't getting out of the way. He's having to pull over to sort something out, surely, and now he's trying to get back onto the track safely. But the problem is that entire corner is basically one long apex, isn't it? So you can't really get back onto the track safely without going onto someone's line. He is going back and spinning as a consequence. Not sure what Stuart Vickers is doing here, but we can probably write him off for the win anyway.
Yeah, I think so. I think he might have had a hardware issue there and just decided to pull off to the side.
Yeah, very sensibly if it was.
Yeah. One thing that's been going on the timing screens is Oliver Gibson set 55.7 on the last lap, which is quicker than his pole position time. So I think people are really burning the fuel off now, and we're really starting to see the lap times tumble. And I think we are going to see some pit stops pretty soon now. If we see people in the pits now, they'll definitely make it on 3 pit stops for the race, but they need to get to 45 minutes to go, so that's another 11 minutes they'd need to make it on a 1-stop strategy, which obviously doesn't factor in the rain. So I think the 2-stop is definitely going to be... If there's rain. Right. For all we know, Rich is going to be trolling us, and the rain's going to turn up. The rain's going to turn up on the cool down lap, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's not because that was his intention. It's because he messed up the setting somehow or something. I don't know. But Joel Lasker, a little reminder to subscribe to the channel. That's very fancy, that, Lewis. Never seen that one before, but I like it. Joel Lask versus Josh Martin, the closest battle that we got out on the circuit. I was about to bring up the fact that Carl Fellows, Elliot Dalton-Ayres are lapping remarkably similarly over the past, I don't know, 20 minutes or so, actually. Since they've been in second and third place, the time has been about between 5.5 seconds and 4.5 seconds between them for that entire time. As I said, even the last laps and stuff like that, been within 1/10 of a second of each other. So second and third really not changing too much. First place, obviously, Oliver Gibson is just running away with it somewhat, 14 seconds up the road. But here is a battle for 6th position, if I can count correctly. Yes, it is. No, it's for 7th. Sorry, Josh Martin slinging one at the inside of Canada corner on Joel Lask, coming back onto the circuit just ahead of Joel as well. So nice and feisty, this little battle here, considering we're not even halfway through this race.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Josh is just getting past Joel again on his recovery drive. He's up to 7th now. He's got just under 10 seconds to Reese Bell, who's held his own brilliantly in 6th place. We haven't really mentioned Reese all too much recently, but whereas Craig's fallen down a bit, Reese has done a really good job, but now I think we've reached a definite crossover point between the two compounds of tyre. Now it's definitely favouring Craig Curtis at the moment, because he's lapping a lot quicker than Josh, than Reese, than the people in front of him. He's down on 57.7. The next quickest person than him ahead of him is Eric in 5th. So those 2 cars in front of him who have been battling, but Craig is reeling them in again, and Rich as well. So he's on the move in the right direction for Craig at the moment. And it looks like out front, Kyle and Elliot are pretty much even Stevens at the moment, and it's just Oliver pulling out the gap at the moment. I'm really curious whether Oliver's car's fueled less or this is just raw pace. I hope we get our answer soon enough, because then that'll give us 1,000,001 extra things we can talk to you about. Tyre strategy wise, it is only Craig on the hard tyres now, I believe, so he's the only one who's rolled the dice on this, as Alok Iyengar's had a bit of an incident there.
Well, yeah, he's not facing the correct direction, is he? So Alok Iyengar all the way down in 13th position. Struggling to win the... Well, he's not quite won the competition of who is going to get the slowest lap just yet, because Stuart Vickers is still holding on to that one, I think. But he is just
definitely
about
getting darker.
It is getting dark. I was trying to play around in my settings on the timing tower to see what the temperature and everything like that. The temperature, according to the timing screen and everything, is currently the same. But I don't know if that's going to update constantly or whether that's just going to be like every 10 minutes it's going to update or something. But you're right, it is definitely getting darker out there, isn't it? And we're starting to see the lights even come in, the lighting off the headlamps starting to come into play onto the road, aren't we? So this could be very, very interesting indeed. Do you reckon there are going to be a lot of drivers out there? Well, as we said, we don't know whether it's actually they're going to have to pit for fuel or tyres. If it's fuel, they're going to have to pit regardless. If it's tyres, you can sort of like just deal with it, can't you? But are they going to last as long as possible? Or do you reckon you're just going to come in slightly earlier, fueling, get those tyres back on to try and get some quick times on fresh rubber, maybe on low fuel, knowing you'll have to then pit in about 10-15 minutes for wet, and then you'll fuel up again?
I think given where the pit lane is, and it's on the main straight, the cars are going to be going flat out alongside you while you're stationary. I think...
Yeah, not ideal.
Yeah, I think it's more of a benefit to stay out. But I think the limiting factor here is just how much fuel is in the car. I think people will just have to pit when they run out of fuel. Because in this scenario, if you're seeing it start to go grey as it is now, I'm thinking fuel save as much as possible and just keep the tyres going, because it looks like it is going to tip it down. It looks like what it would look like outside most of our houses in the UK in August, because, you know, summer, as we've alluded to already.
Yeah, I'm getting anxious. I feel like I'm going to have to go and get my washing in or something just by looking at the screen. It's one of them, isn't it? And getting that anxiety already in my stomach.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel for the drivers, but then at the same time, it's a lot of fun.
Feel for the drivers?
Yeah.
Nah,
well,
I love it.
Some of them are going to be absolutely terrified of this rain, and some of them are going to absolutely love it. I mean, personally, I love it when it tips it down and driving in real life. I always loved it when it rained in karting. It was so much fun trying to just find some grip when there really wasn't any. And I know certain drivers will prefer having to find the grip in the rain, and certain drivers won't. And it also depends on kind of your scenario in the race. Like, if you're Josh Martin in 7th, you've had a couple of mistakes, you're hoping just tip it down at an awkward point so that I can try and roll the dice and do something to gain back the time that he's currently behind the leaders. If you're Oliver Gibson, you're just praying that there's just one lap where you can come in, put a set of wet tyres on at the optimum time and carry on. But he has got a 16-second lead. That does give him plenty of time to work with, but that won't give him time to avoid losing his... Oh no, Reece Bell! Reece Bell's dropping down!
Reece Bell, sideways, looking the wrong way, out of turn 5, I believe that is.
It is.
No, it's turn 4, sorry, turn 4, isn't it? Reece Bell, all the way, dropping down, dropping like a... Oh my guys, oh there, thank you very much, Andy Cowell. Reece Bell gets back onto the circuit in 11th place. Don't know what happened there. He was in a complete... like no man's land. He wasn't anywhere near anybody else last time I checked, which was only about 2 laps ago. So I cannot believe he would, you know, have someone catch up to him and then take him off. So I think it was just an honest mistake there from Reece Bell, which is a bit heartbreaking, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really getting dark now. So I think I would imagine rain is imminent at some point. Looks like the drivers are very near to making this on the one-stop strategy, but if it rains, that's going straight out the window probably. It depends on whether you can go straight to a set of wet tyres. Now, the longer this pans out, the more it benefits Craig Curtis on those hard tyres, because we've gone past the crossover point. His tyres are going to be working better, but I think it all depends on the fuel level that these drivers are carrying. I mean, you could probably fill this car up quite a lot. I don't know what the maximum fuel capacity is, and I'm not entirely sure how much it uses per lap, but I imagine 3-point-something litres. And if you've got, say you've got a 120-litre fuel tank, and you filled it to the brim, that gives you 40 laps. 40 laps at roughly 2 minutes will give you most of the race. So I don't think they're going to have that much fuel, but probably enough to get just over half distance, I think, would be the plan for everyone. Pit on the halfway mark and then make it to the end. But then you kind of need to leave some margin for wets if it dries out, if it rains just past the halfway mark. So
you just mistakenly actually made a good point. What if it dries back out?
Yeah, that is true, actually, yeah. Rich didn't say when the rain was coming, but he also didn't tell us how hard it was going to be. Are they going to need wets? That's another point we haven't discussed. And if they do need wets, is it then going to go back to dry? We really have no idea. It's kind of like real world. Like, they'll show radars of what's going on, but nobody has a clue if they're accurate or not. Like, you see on the F1 broadcasts all the time, the radar, the weather radar, with all of the different colours on, saying it's either going to rain or it isn't, and then you see all the people on the pit wall with their hands out to see, can we feel some rain? That's how much trust they have in the systems.
I was going to say, at the end of the day, like, my dad does a similar thing when we were racing. He used to sit in the garage, or in our awning, shall we say, and he would sit there on his phone looking at the weather and refreshing it every 5 minutes or something, everything like that. And then all of a sudden, the whole garage would go mental because all of a sudden it starts raining. And everybody's starting to look at their sort of tyres, and all the mechanics are changing the tyres over to wets and everything like that. And he's still just looking at his phone going, well, it's not raining on my phone. It's like, well, yeah, but there's water falling from the skies. I don't really know what you... I'm sure it's not supposed to be raining. It's like, well, it is. So what are you going to do about it? But one of the most smug sort of moments I ever had in motorsport was actually, I used to race in a race called the Burkitt, and it was a 6-hour race. And it was at Silverstone. It's in November, so it's always going to be wet. It's like 60 cars on circuit. It's ran by the 750 Motor Club, and it's a fantastic event. If anybody out there has got any kind of car that you take on track, please have a research of the Burkitt right at the end, the season closer, because it is just fantastic fun. And you have 3 drivers in it each, and I always started the race because I was one of the more experienced drivers at the time in the car we were using, and it was always in the Ginetta G40, and we would always qualify, and we'd always be around Mazda MX-5s, and it's in November, and it was absolutely tipping it down with rain, absolutely drenching the whole place. It was like underwater. It was fantastic fun to drive in, because at Silverstone you're not going to hit anything, you're not going to be going fast enough in that kind of weather. But I remember sitting on the grid and someone span out as we came out the pit, so they were recovering that car for ages. And I remember sitting there with my heater on, because there's a heater in the Ginetta, looking to my right, and there's some poor soul in a Mazda MX-5 just getting his car filled up with water, slowly waiting for this race to start. And I remember waving at him, and he put his middle finger up at me. He was not happy at all. And I found him afterwards, and we had a bit of a laugh about it. But yeah, I did think that. I was like, oh, thank God I was in the tin top there, because if you're in open wheel in that car, open soft top or whatever you want to call it, in that kind of rain, it is really very depressing situation. Yeah, as I said, if anybody out there has got a racing car that they ever go on track days or anything with, or if they're ever racing, or if they know anybody who does, Burkitt 6 hour in November is utterly brilliant fun. I do implore you to do it, and you will be on track with the likes of GT3 cars and radicals and everything like that. And the funnest thing is, if you're in there in a Ginetta and you've got a 1.8 litre engine or anything similar sort of thing, and you just drive around the middle of the circuit, just taking every wet line available, don't go near any rubber, near any dry line, you'll be overtaking Ferrari GT3s and everything, because they've just got too much power to be putting down in those kind of conditions. So yeah, really good fun. Definitely recommend that if you're into your endurance racing. I do hope one day to be commentating on that, actually. I don't know if Andy's ever done the commentary on that, but it is really good fun. Anyway, Oliver Gibson is still, still beating everyone, isn't he?
Yeah, do you reckon Rich will fund a little entry for the 3 of us or something? That would be great.
That would be a good fun, wouldn't it? I think, yeah, he's probably got enough contacts in motorsport to know someone who can give him the car. I've been offered my old car, actually, a few times for free just to race in the Burkett, as long as I race with the person who now owns the car, sort of thing. It's somebody who we met through Michael Crease, a guy called Vince, unbelievably nice guy. So, yeah, I do hope to be back out there one day, but I don't think Rich is going to stump up the money for a VRRC car. I'd be impressed, but I think it's unlikely.
Rich, there's a challenge for you.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. We've got to get the sim racing and the sim events big enough so we can sponsor then a trip to Silverstone for the Burkett 6 hour.
We'll call it a marketing trip, and then we can cover everything on expenses.
Exactly. We'll put a sim rig in the garage and everything like that. It'll be great fun.
Yeah, that'll be brilliant. And
get the Lions barber involved.
Oh yeah, obviously. Lovely work they do for us. We can have a haircut mid-race as well.
Well, you'll need one as well because your hair will be soaking wet. They wouldn't need to wash it beforehand. Just straight onto the haircut. So that would be fantastic. But anyway, we have to look, actually focusing back on Rich and this particular endurance race. He's having a little bit of a ding-dong with Craig Curtis. We said that Craig has fallen down a little bit, but you said about that crossover quite a lot, Lewis. Well, the crossover has come, and he's certainly acting on it, isn't he? The last lap was similar to Rich Hayden, but up until then, he's caught quite significantly, hasn't he? And if we're looking at Joel Lask, Joel is actually nearly 3 or 4 tenths slower than Craig Curtis on these hard tyres now, but they're well over half distance.
Yeah, they are. So I think it is going to be one pit stop depending on when this rain comes, if it comes. It might be the case that the weather's just set to be really overcast and it's not actually going to rain and it's just going to tease us all the way to the end of the race. But one thing I noticed as you were telling us that wonderful anecdote is Nicky Taylor did a 55.9 at some point. He is now lapping considerably quicker than the 3 drivers in front of him. So Nicky's obviously found something because he's consistently started lapping quicker than the top 3 now, and that's why he's bailed for the pits. This is
Nicky Taylor pitting on lap. What lap are we on? 24.
With 40 minutes to go. This is risky because it does look like it's going to rain, but it's certainly not wet enough to put wets on it.
Oh, my weather has updated. But it's saying it's 40 degrees road temperature now, so a 5-degree increase on road temperature, and the ambient temperature has risen by 3 degrees.
That's a sign it's going to rain.
Yeah, I think that's going to be... well, the fact that we have a change is the big thing, because normally I didn't even know this tower told the weather, to be honest, because we've never changed the weather at all in VRRC. But obviously we've changed that now. Current weather is Sol, which means sun. Overcast. I'm guessing Sol over 6 means sort of sunny, but it's overcast at the moment. I'll let you know if that changes. But ultimately,
it's raining.
It's not a spot of rain. That is rain, isn't it? And people are in the pits. Joel Lask is in the pits, and so is Nicky Taylor. What
tyres does he come out on them? We'll see.
I can't see any wets. They're all mediums.
Oh, this has not worked out.
It's mediums. They are mediums.
Oh, this has not worked out for them at all. To answer your question, Sol is the name of the weather extension, which we use.
Part of it. Sun.
It is, and it's also a nice type of beer. Other alcoholic beverages are available.
Non-alcoholic.
And non-alcoholic for those of you not old enough to drink. But yes, it's to do with the weather extension. So that's what that is. And Oliver Gibson's in the pits. Now, is he going to come in for wets? This is the big moment. Here we go.
If he's seen that, Carl Elvis is in the pits as well. So Elliot Daltonez has taken the lead of this race. And I think he's got the better strategy right now, unless Oliver Gibson decides that he's going to stick on the wet weather tyres. But it's probably not wet enough for the wet yet. But you can definitely see rain is starting to pour. Who else is coming in there? Is it Stuart Vickers in the background? I wouldn't be surprised if Eric Axelson, Josh Martin, and the rest of the field do come in, but we're going to have to see repeats for the likes of Nicky Taylor, Carl Felvis, and Oliver Gibson. We're going to have to keep an eye out here. How is Nicky Taylor getting on with those dry tyres? Oliver Gibson, Eric Axelson goes past. Eric Axelson hasn't pitted yet. I'm just trying to write down in my notes that Felvis and Gibson both pitting. Who's that just overtaking Gibson as well?
It looks like Oliver and
Josh
Kyle
Martin.
swapped over. Josh Martin has stayed out as well. But it looks... that was sketchy. That was the first sketchy moment for Nicky. Looking to see kind of how he's progressing. The tyres don't look too bad. I think they need a couple of laps. And, drama. Both... Kyle is still in the pits, but he's come out on wet tyres. Oliver Gibson came out on a set of medium tyres. Oh, this is a gamble. We do love a good gamble. But importantly, Elliott stayed out, so he's obviously fueled the car up and been very gentle on the consumption, so that might be why the time difference to Oliver was so big, because he's just been fuel saving and driving to a number to try and get the most out of the car. But I don't think it's wet enough for wets now, but I think pitting for mediums wasn't the right call. We'll see how they fare at the moment. Wide. They're all off there, so we'll see how a slower speed corner goes. Oh, that's not looking good.
So is Stuart Vickers, but Kyle Felvers, if this is actually turned into wet on this particular lap, could have just had a massive stroke of genius here, because he'll be the one who's actually gripping to the road while everybody else is slipping off. Because I'm just, how slow are these last time? Elliot Daltonaire's last lap, who remember didn't come in, although he actually came in on this lap, so that's not representative. Is a 2:05 or something, but it's all, there's a lot of 2 minutes in there. Craig Curtis on those hards, 1:59. He hasn't come in yet, so that was a slower time. Kyle Felvers obviously came out the pit, so it's hard to tell. But is anybody not coming to the pits? No, here comes Eric Axelson as well into the pits. Josh Martin we're expecting in about 10 seconds time to come in, and we're just going to see. It's really, isn't it, between Oliver Gibson and Kyle Felvers. That's the two drivers we're keeping an eye on, because Kyle Felvers was, we're talking 20 seconds back, but Oliver Gibson coming back out on those medium tyres could have well have just thrown away an entire pit stop and given the time to Kyle Felvers. Here comes Elliot Daltonaire's out on the wet tyres. So Elliot Daltonaire's on the wets, leads this race, holds on to the lead as well. Elliot Daltonaire's is leading this one from second place. Oliver Gibson is absolutely nowhere near. Now, there could be differences. No, Oliver Gibson's back into the pits. Oliver Gibson came out of the mediums. He decided it wasn't good enough. He's come back into the to get the wets on his car, and he's just thrown away an absolute ton of time there, Lewis.
Yeah, I think we could see it was the wrong call, but I don't think he had entirely much of a choice. He had to come in and put something on, and when he came out into the pits, it definitely wasn't ready for wets, but it definitely is now. But we're praising Kyle Felvers for his brilliant strategy, but somehow Elliot Daltonaire's now has a 16-second lead. So I think Kyle, what he might have done is put slicks on, realised he didn't want slicks, and then waited to put wets on. But he's made a little mistake there. The gap's gone up to 21.7. Now, I don't want to be a bit defeatist here, but Elliot and Oliver were incredibly quick in the practice server, and they were miles quicker than everyone. So I think as long as Elliot keeps it on the track nicely, he's just going to disappear off now.
I've just realised, Nicky Taylor.
Nicky
Taylor has been in the pits. He's in 7th place. He's behind the likes of Eric Axelson. He's a long way back considering where he was. Has he had a bit of a moment? He's an awfully long way back if you're talking in terms of time. I was curious as to whether fuel came into play at all as well. Maybe that's why Kyle Felvers was stuck in the pits. Whether he overfueled accidentally, he didn't adjust over the amount of fuel that he would have to put in, so he put, like, say, starting amount of fuel in rather than the end of the race. So he's got an hour's worth of fuel in there instead of half an hour sort of thing. And wondering whether that cost him a little bit of time in the pits as well. There's all these things you could consider. Nicky Taylor, though, do you think he had a spin or something?
He had to pit twice because he came out on a set of mediums early because of the fuel. So he's had to be through the pits again, but still to be up there in 7th. Andy Carroll, we pointed out he was the second person to fit those wet tyres. That's worked really well for him. He's up to 6th. Craig Curtis out in 9th, so that strategy didn't quite work out as well as I think he'd hoped, but there's still 33 minutes to go to make up the time. Now he's on the same strategy as everyone else. Now, the thing I'm curious on is Oliver Gibson gained 4 tenths in the last time I just looked at the gap between him and Eric Axelson. Could he potentially get a P2 out of this.
And is it going to dry? Is it going to stop raining?
Well, this
That's
is true.
question.
We still don't know how long this downpour's going to go on for. It's definitely got to the point where it's much quicker to pit and take a set of wet tyres over staying out on slicks, because we saw people sliding off the road on the in lap to come and get a new set of tyres. So it's definitely the right strategy at the moment, but I'm interested to see, well, how long the wet tyres last, because I don't know the answer to that. I don't know whether they're going to have to be careful, extra careful or not, because they could overheat quite easily if we've not actually got that much surface water on the track. But it looks like it is pouring down quite a bit now. So there's plenty of strategic elements still to happen. We don't know how long this rain's going to last, as we've alluded to. We don't know how intense this rain is going to get. Is it going to lighten up before it stops, or is it going to get heavier before it stops, or stay the same? What we do know is Elliott is on an absolute charge at the moment. That gap, which I said was 22 seconds, is 24.5 seconds now. So he's really on a mission. Now, he has got a new direct drive wheel, and direct drive, for those of you that don't know, Oliver Gibson's off.
Oh, weird. Oliver Gibson is facing the wrong way. He's had a bit of a spin, and I think we saw A-Lock Irongar having a similar spin. That's coming out of Canada corner, isn't it? So, yeah, that's big news. Oliver Gibson has seen this race slipping further and further away from him. That's NGK. Oh, he's having another off as well. What is wrong with it? Is that overheating? Well, he's not quite gone off, but it was a properly good hold, actually, wasn't it, through the final corner? But is his tyres overheating or something here? Is that why he's struggling slightly, maybe?
I mean, it's very easy to overpush the car, but I think the second moment, the really good save, was caused by the tyres being too hot from the first moment we saw. So he's just going to have to be a bit careful now to not overheat the tyres. But going back to my point on Elliott, I mean, he was 1.7 seconds quicker than Kyle was last lap. That's just brilliant pace from him. But yeah, he's recently got a new direct drive wheel, and a direct drive wheel is effectively a industrial motor that's programmed to give the driver force feedback. So it'll go in. Ooh, that sounded like a spin for someone in front. That's Josh Martin.
Oh, it was indeed. Josh Martin going very slowly on the exit. He didn't quite have a full bidding it into the tyres or anything moment, but he did manage to get it facing the right direction, and he's going to have to recover, not coming across the nose of anybody, hopefully, either. Let's have a look at how Oliver Gibson drives this then, because I'm guessing he's going to be soaring at his wheel. I think Oliver Gibson's got a direct drive as well, actually, you were talking about it. Look at that, hooking the curves, and he's gone round. Hit the curb too hard there, Lewis. And I don't know. Was the practice server? Did they have much of wet weather running in the practice server or not?
There was more wet running than there was dry running in the end. But yeah, Oliver does have a direct drive as well, but Elliott, I don't think, had one before. So this kind of upgrade is a significant improvement for him. But yeah, Kyle Felvis impressively doesn't have a direct drive. Eric Axelson has the
Has he
most.
not won yet one?
Not yet.
Felvis, I feel like he should have won a direct drive by now.
No, he's managed to get like second or third in all the championships we've done it.
Wow.
And I think the last of our Camus wheels stretches at the moment to the next touring car championship, potentially. Don't know on that one, still to be confirmed. So that may be an opportunity for him to win one, but he's going to have to beat some tough competition.
I think it has been confirmed. I think the prizes have been confirmed. They've been shared on social media anyway, so we can talk about it.
Oh, okay, we can tell people then. Yeah, I haven't just disclosed a secret, so that's all good.
No, I don't, well, I don't think so anyway. You got me questioning it now. I'm going to go on their Instagram and make sure.
No, we're all good. I've just checked. They did confirm it is a Camus direct drive wheel, which I've driven at the VRRC Centre with you and Andy, as we know. And it was very good. It holds up against the Simi Cube, which Eric and Nikki Taylor and Rich all use. And yeah, it's a very good direct drive wheel, the Camus. And that's what's helping Elliott get that extra feeling. Because with a direct drive wheel, all force feedback is very immediate. And you can get... it can be very smooth, it can be very harsh. It all depends on the forces the car is experiencing. It kind of gives you a more one-to-one representation of the real-world thing. So that's definitely an advantage for Elliott, which may be contributing to his nearly 30-second lead now.
Yeah, I was going to say, when we're talking, whenever we take the sims anywhere else, and people come up to us and we say, oh, have you done one of these sort of things before? Have you got a sim at home or anything like that? And I go, oh, yeah, I've got a Logitech G29. And go, okay, that's brilliant. We've got nothing against the Logitechs or anything like that. They're a fantastic entry-level sort of thing. But, you know, a Logitech G29 wheels are just over £100 sort of thing. And the direct drive is a price comparison, if that's the only sort of way you sort of could quantify it in your head if you've never really felt these things before. The direct drives that we're talking about, the SimiCube stuff that we use, is around about £2,000 all in, isn't it? Because you have to buy the motor, that's the direct drive is the motor, and then you have to buy what is called a rim, which is the steering wheel that you actually hold on to. Just to go back to that, it looks like Joel Lask has got a DNF. I'm not entirely sure why, but Reese Bell versus Craig Curtis is also going side by side. We'll have a look at Joel Lask in a second. Go back to how this one's going to end up. It's, in fact, more people off the road as well, but Craig Curtis versus Reese Bell. This was a fight for about 4th position once upon a time. And going through Canada Corner, Reese Bell holds on to that one. Nicky Taylor versus Andy Carroll just up the road has Nicky Taylor ahead of Andy Carroll now in 6th position. The wet running, or Reese Bell going off the road and Craig Curtis going back on through. So we're finding that the actual racing is particularly difficult, and this is a bit of an experiment, isn't it, Lewis, into what is going to work best. Are we going to introduce wet weather into our main championships? Well, we'll have to wait and see. This is the experiment at the end of the day. We want to get the drivers' feedback. We want to get the entertainment's feedback as well, seeing what everybody at home is thinking of it. But I think it's added a lovely little bit of spice into the mix. And as the flames spit out the side of these LMP cars, Reese Bell goes back up the inside of Craig Curtis through turn 1.
Yeah, it's proving to be very tricky to drive, but we're seeing some supreme driver skill. And yeah, going back to your point on the direct drive wheels, another way you could quantify it is the maximum torque of a Logitech G29 is about 2.1 Newton meters. The maximum torque of the SimiCube 2 Pro is 25 Newton meters. So yeah, that's
extra strong.
That's 12.5 times more potential strength, and people will limit the force that can output quite considerably, so that it doesn't rip your arms to pieces.
Yeah, on the sims that we use actually for the events and stuff, we have it dialed down to about 30-40%, just because we don't want people to get a feel of the smoothness and the actual strength that it has, but we don't want to injure anybody, obviously.
Yeah, and the other thing that's really impressive about direct drives is what they call slew rate, which is how quickly it can move. With most wheels like the Logitech, a belt system is what gives you the feedback, so you have to actually physically move the belt in order to give the feedback. A direct drive is effectively a computer program, tells the motor to turn, and it instantly turns. So you get much more immediate feedback. It can be very sharp, but it can also be very smooth if you tune the right settings in. But that's a lot of technical talk for people. Steering wheel turns, better steering wheels potentially help you go faster. In a quick summary, and they can also break your arms if you're not careful. So let go of the steering wheel when you're about to hit someone.
Yes, just like in real life, that's what they tell you to do, of course, as well. Have your thumbs outside of the steering wheel, which is a very important thing when it comes to racing. Yes, I do remember when, I think one of the first times you came onto the broadcast with me, Lewis, and I think with about 3 minutes to go at qualifying, I accidentally brought up the difference between, Logitech G29 and a direct drive wheel, or belt-driven and direct drive wheels and everything like that. And I remember Rich saying, "Don't ever do that again. If he gets onto direct drive wheels and everything like that, just interrupt him and rein him in." But since we're in a 90-minute race, I thought, you know what, I'm going to let him run with it. I'm going to let you have your moment. But if anybody out there can tell, Lewis really likes direct drive wheels. Oh, there he is. John Jones just completely went out of the picture then. I thought maybe he glitched out, but he went that far wide. He actually just completely went off the camera. So it's a bit of a shame for him. Andy Carroll versus Nicky Taylor. Nicky Taylor is a bit of a recovery drive now, isn't it? Well, he's had to do one of them already, to be honest. He's been constantly a busy man, has Nicky Taylor. He's up to 6th position, which I still think is one up from where he started. No, he started in 3rd, actually, didn't he? So he's really not having a particularly brilliant time. There is plenty of close racing out there, though. Andy Carroll versus Nicky Taylor are 2 drivers that are very close, and actually they're the closest by the looks of it. But Reese Bell, Craig Curtis, Stuart Vickers is actually a back marker. I was about to say Stuart Vickers and Oliver Gibson, but I thought that didn't sound quite right. But Stuart Vickers is a back marker, and in fact there is Stuart Vickers getting out of the way as they needs to head up the hill. Oliver Gibson in 5th place. What are his lap times saying? Well, his last lap time, which I think he's about to cross the line, I think he just has crossed the line, was a 2-minute 5.7. 0.6 of a second slower, that's right, slower than Elliot Dalton-Ayres, but it's still about 3 seconds quicker than the likes of Kyle Felvers, who doesn't seem to be particularly enjoying the wet quite as much as some of his other high runners. Eric Axelson's not doing too bad a job. 2 seconds quicker than Kyle, but about a second and a half quicker than Kyle, but about a second off the likes of Elliot Dalton-Ayres. Josh Martin's doing a fairly decent job, but again, it's Oliver Gibson and Nicky Taylor and Elliot Dalton-Ayres, aren't they, who are in the 2-minute 5s. And to be fair, Andy Carroll, 2-minute 5.6 is faster than Nicky Taylor. It's faster than Oliver Gibson. The only person who he's not faster than is Elliot Dalton-Ayres. So Andy Carroll doing a really good job.
Yeah, I think Nicky's recently got past Andy Carroll, and that's just helped Andy find a bit of time. He's kind of pulling him along with him, and now to the point where Andy's actually lapping slightly quicker than Nicky at the moment. On this particular lap, he's lost a little bit in that first sector, but yeah, he's using the fact that he's behind Nicky to learn and try and apply some new lines. Andy's more of a front-wheel drive specialist, but he does tend to run quite well in the rear-wheel drives as well as... Oh no, Stuart Vickers has gone straight on at the carousel there. And looks like he's going to gingerly rejoin to the outside there. Craig Curtis is back within a second of Reese Bell now, so gap is staying pretty close at 1.2 seconds between these two, but Craig is ever so slightly reeled that one in. Yeah, Elliot's doing a mega job out front. Yeah, really, really quick pace and consistently quicker than pretty much everyone at the moment. He was Adrian Cuvier is 2.3 seconds quicker than Kyle on the last lap.
He's flying, isn't he?
He is, yeah. We'll watch his driving. Now, I imagine that he's set his car up for the rain and has put a bit more downforce on than Oliver Gibson has. So the aero has about, I think it's 2 adjustments on the front, and I think about 8 on the rear, 8 till 10 I think it is. So I found that in dry running, if you run quite low aero, it's just about the same sort of pace, maybe a tenth or 2 quicker than high downforce around here. In the bone dry, optimum conditions of qualifying. But I think the higher downforce levels in the rain are definitely helping Elliot. But you can see he's on the limit of the grip, but it doesn't look like he's hacksawing away at the wheel at any point. He's just controlling it ever so slightly, just slipping the tyre a little bit just to get the rotation, but nothing more. It's really good driving from him, and this is why his lead has just surpassed 40 seconds.
It's very impressive. It's actually smoother than most people in the dry, isn't it? I mean, there's corrections going on, but it's the wet. You're going to have like a small bit of correction, but look at that, so smooth at the apex, not having to correct himself at all, and just having a little bit of a drift on the exit, which is nothing to be sniffed at when you're touching the curbs and stuff like that. It's very impressive. It's one smooth movement. It's lovely, really, isn't it? Because as you're going into a corner, you don't want to. When we say we're hacking at the steering wheel, what you don't want to do is, you go full lock, then you have to straighten up, full lock, straighten up, full lock, straighten up, sort of thing. You want to just smoothly go into your full lock and then going back. Kyle Felvis in the pit lane. I'm not sure. Well, I wish we had a pit lane reporter here, Lewis, because unfortunately we don't know why he's in the pits. But very strange. He was significantly slower than everybody else. Has he not got enough fuel? I'm not entirely sure, but he's given up that podium position. There's no chance he's going to get it back now with 18 minutes to go. Is he unless he's thinking he's going to put on medium tyres or something and really go for it, but I very much doubt it. Andy Carroll's in the pits as well. We never figured out why Joel Lask DNF'd. It'd be interesting if Joel is in the YouTube comments, whether he can tell us why he DNF'd. But Kyle comes back out in those wet tyres. I theorise that maybe he'd overfueled last time. He can't come into the pits and take fuel out, obviously. Reece Bell's in the pits as well. Are we seeing a fair few? What are we seeing here, Lewis? Can he change setups? Can he change aero in the pits?
No, you absolutely can't. So they haven't heard the broadcast and thought, right, I need to come in and get a new set of aero on the car. No, I think maybe it might be the wet tyres going off. It might be people, because if we look at Kyle's pit stop, it was very quick. He was pretty much in about 3 or 4 seconds in the box, and then out he went again. So kind of what you'd expect for a pit stop for a new set of wet tyres. And I know the F1 is on its summer break now, so we really need Ted Kravitz in the pit lane to tell us what the strategy is. Ted, if you're somehow listening to us, then, please jump in and figure out from us what's going on with the strategy. But I think it is just a new set of tyres for everyone. And that is Elliot's in the pits as well now. So this is interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to guess pits. I'm going to guess you're right there, Lewis, because I think Elliot's last time was a 2:09, which is about 4 seconds slow. I mean, I know it's 2:19 is his last one because he just come into the pits, but it was about 2:09 before that, I think, or something. Eric Axelson's was a 2:09, so he's lapping about 2 or 3 seconds slower than what we were lapping when they first came out on these tyres. Or maybe it's just getting a lot more wet and they're having to put something else in. I'm not. Well, they can't, can they? They can only put new tyres on. So yeah, it must be that. And everybody else is flying into the pits now as well. Nicky Taylor versus Oliver Gibson. Please, Nicky, don't go into the back of Oliver. My goodness me. Overtaking almost into the pits. I'm not 100% sure how allowed that is. But Nicky's done it, so what can he do? Oliver Gibson comes behind. Well, they're actually ghosting into each other, thank God. So I thought that was going to be a big mess at the time, but no. Craig Curtis has had a spin. That's absolutely gutted because there was a driver of the round. Well, I was going to say a medal, but a congratulations going to him if he had managed to follow through on his first 45 minutes. The second 45 minutes really hasn't been very good, though. So Kyle Felvis back out and in second place, 45 seconds behind Elliot Dalton-Ayres, who has also had a pit stop, remember. But so the lap times, the distance really hasn't changed between those two. But Eric Axelson's in third place, Josh Martin's in fourth, Oliver Gibson in fifth, Nicky Taylor in sixth. Rich Hayden's also in the pit, so Andy Carroll's in seventh place. Rich and Craig Curtis both in the pit. So, yeah, I'm guessing they just had to strap on some new boots there, Lewis. There's a lot of standing water now.
Yeah, I think they just ran out of grip, and it's still raining, so the track grip is just getting ever lower the more it continues to rain. So, yeah, I think some people were beginning to struggle. I mean, we saw everybody kind of struggling on the last lap, so I think the tyres might have hit a bit of a cliff. They tend to do that on Assetto Corsa. You can hear how slowly Oliver Gibson had to go around that hairpin just to make the corner. So I think potentially Kyle's just thought, I need to roll the dice, try a bit of an undercut or something, which is why we saw him hit a lap earlier than most. And I think now we're seeing people on a new set of rubber. That'll definitely be good enough to get them to the end. So we should have nobody saving for fuel now. They should all have definitely enough fuel to make the end. Well, they should have done already, but they could have corrected that mistake without losing time. So it looks like it's going to be a straight fight to the finish now between everyone.
I have to say, I sort of... Oh, well, Oliver Gibson going nice and wide. Not nice and wide, but very wide. I have to say, I think it's sort of almost conspicuous. Oh, my days. I'll get to my point in a second because it really doesn't matter in comparison to the actual action. We're seeing Nicky Taylor going around the outside, well, already having the move secured by the time they get into Canada corner, and Oliver Gibson having so many corrections, isn't it? And I think it is just, look at how he's starving. It's almost bordering on impossible to drive. It does just say light drizzle on the track state, shall we? So he's gone straight on there, Oliver Gibson. Yeah, really struggling now, isn't it? It's very difficult out there. You can see how sodden it is. And that actually gets me to my point I was about to make before Oliver Gibson started throwing it off. Visually, it looks very, very good, doesn't it, Lewis? And I know you were one of the reasons why we've never really done rain before, because it is very taxing on the PCs to simulate it and get the graphics and everything like that, but particularly your PC having to visualize all of it. It looks very, very good, doesn't it, this sort of wet weather? I know it's very difficult, and maybe this is a little bit too wet, perhaps. It's more of a battle of survival now as we go into the next championship. Maybe just keeping it the sort of light drizzle and maybe turning it off after a little bit is potentially a little bit better idea. But visually, this looks very good, doesn't it? I mean, the reflections on the track and everything look amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So props to Eric for sending me his track-specific config for this. But yeah, rain effects is not an official feature of the game.
Oh my days. Every
there.
time he touches that curb, which is very realistic, you cannot touch anything that's painted. As soon as it rains, you keep off anything that is painted, because it will just sort of suck you into oblivion, basically, and you can't do it. So avoid every curb by all means necessary, sort of thing. My point is, it looks very good.
Yeah, it does. It's not an officially supported feature. It's something someone with far too much free time has modified into the game. So the person who makes what we call Content Manager, which is an add-on for Assetto Corsa, which does so many various things which we all use on a daily basis to put on these races, and the drivers will all use every day as well. One of the things they've implemented on their little paid version is rain effects. So yeah, we initially found long ago that it was just too taxing on PCs, but they spent a heap of time and resources optimizing it. So now I've had a little bit of a glitch with the timing tower.
Yeah, we say it's optimized now, and all of a sudden it starts going wrong, isn't it? He's Andy Carroll. He can't actually be no, he's not actually in second place, is he? Nicky Taylor getting past Josh Martin, though. That is legitimate. So that's not a timing tower glitch. Nicky Taylor up into the top 5. And I have to say, Nicky looks very good in the wet, doesn't he? He sort of drove past Oliver Gibson like he wasn't even there. Oliver, I know, was making lots of little mistakes and everything like that, but Nicky Taylor drove around him, seems very calm and composed. Seems to have gotten past Josh Martin without any trouble as well. And we saw he was quick anyway, but in these wet conditions, it looks like he's suiting him, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks like Nicky's a bit more at home. He can have a very smooth or a very aggressive driving style. He seems to be able to switch between them quite well. And he was very good at being smooth and just one gentle steering input for each corner in the touring cars, which is part of the reason he ran away with as many races as he did. But he can also be very aggressive. We'll see here, he's probably going to yank the steering wheel left hand down. No, he's really struggling to get it to the apex. So in the practice server, when it was raining a little bit, we were seeing kind of times in the 2:08 mark, but now we're seeing times all the way down. Elliot's in an absolute class of one. I cannot emphasize that enough. So everybody else is looking at 2:23s or 24s. Nicky is on a 23.3.
And that's very quick.
That's quick, because the next quickest car is a 24.1, which is Eric in front of him. But Elliot Dalton Ayres is on a 21.1, and he was on a 19.6, I think it was, on the last lap.
Was, yeah.
So he is just disappearing off. He's got an absolute handle on these conditions, but I think these conditions are definitely suiting Nicky's car and driving style a lot more as he begins to reel in Eric Axelsen. He's going to need a bit more time gain. Oh, actually, no, maybe not. 4 seconds back. It is doable for him at the current pace advantage he's got. But I think, by the looks of it, as the rain comes down more and more, certain drivers who are happy in these conditions will gain more and more time. So I think Nicky's going to start reeling in Eric and
But
Kyle by a larger margin. Let's have a look. How are they on the timing screens at the moment? We'll see what the lap times are like when they come across the line very shortly. So Eric's on a 2:20.9. So that's 1.3 seconds in Nicky's favour that time around. So time coming back to Nicky. He's now the quickest driver on the track. So it looks like he's very comfortable there. But Kyle Felvers is suffering big time at the moment. He was on a 24.4. So Eric is going to be on him for P2 in maybe 2 or 3 laps at the current rate. And Nicky is going to be on Eric at about that point as well. So we look like we're getting a 3-car battle for P2. And if other cars are catching up as well, Josh Martin on a 23.4, so he's edging towards this group. We could see many cars in a battle for P2 as Elliot's lead has surpassed 1 minute. And I think that says enough, really, doesn't it?
Yes, no, Elliot's pretty untouchable. We thought that about Oliver Gibson once upon a time, and it's amazing how that can change, can't it? But yeah, no, it's so I can't say how impressive it is to see like Nicky's driving there when we were on board with it. It's so smooth. I know it looks really boring and looks really easy, and think, oh, why can't everybody just do that? But the point is, not everyone can just do that. That is why it's so very impressive. And the smoother you are, the faster you are, as is the old saying. So yeah, Nicky very much catching up to Eric and Kyle. It is interesting, isn't it? Because out of the HFT boys, I'm not sure really about Jordan Taylor. If we're comparing like Nicky Taylor, real world driver. If we're talking about some of the others as well, Josh Martin, real world driver. Elliot Dalton Hayes, real world. Carter, I know. I'm not sure about Eric Atkinson. I don't know if he's ever driven anything in real life. But you know, there are a lot of drivers out there who. Yeah, Kyle Felvers, the point I'm making here is Kyle Felvers isn't real life, is he, driver? He hasn't driven in the wet, and if he's only ever driven on iRacing and Assetto Corsa with VRRC, then he won't have driven in the wet too much before. So maybe that is why he's struggling a little bit in comparison to the other real drivers who have real world drivers, I should say, who maybe have experienced this sort of thing in real life, and they think, okay, well, this is how I deal with it in real life. This is how I'll deal with it in the sim. And Kyle hasn't had that experience to just turn that on, sort of. So he's had to learn it in the practice server a little bit, and it takes years to learn how to drive in the wet. It's so hard, as Nicky Taylor's showing there, because he misses the apex completely. So maybe that's not really working in Kyle's favour right now.
Potentially not, no, but at the end of the day, that was definite thunder. That was people on the watching the broadcast will have heard that. So yeah, I think it real world experience does definitely benefit. But when the wet weather conditions are so different in terms of the racing line, only some of that experience is really applicable. Because if, as we both know, because we've driven, well, I've driven karts in the wet and you've driven all sorts in the rain, the racing line becomes just slippery as anything. Unusable in most cases, whereas here they're trying to stay on that racing line because it's still the quickest way around. And I think this is the reason why iRacing are taking a while to develop their wet weather system, is because they want to make it the most realistic possible, where being on that racing line is as unusable as it would be in a real car. But I do think the skills that you learn of just how to balance the car in the rain, to know how to push the car, how to just restrain yourself from pushing the throttle too much, turning too much, hitting the brakes too much, that's very transferable from anything real world into this. And karting is a little less applicable than maybe car racing could be. As Nicky's going for the move. Eric's had some issues on the brakes there. A little bit of contact, but just about make it through.
Yeah, I was about to lunge into a little bit of a physics lesson as to why the racing line in real life is different in the dry and the wets. But luckily, Nicky Taylor has saved everyone, spared everybody else, because he's offering something to get excited about on the track. And he's up into 3rd place. There was a little bit of a problem there for Eric Axelsson. Nicky Taylor trying to take advantage of. It was a little bit of contact, but it's a bit of bumping and barging. Wasn't too much to get excited about, I would say. Nicky Taylor was always going to have the move done. But he's given the flash of the lights to his HFT teammate now as, well, they're not teammates on this particular run, but Kyle Feldes versus Nicky Taylor. And I think by the way that the times have been going, the way that Nicky Taylor's been driving, the way Kyle has been driving in the wet conditions, I can only see this going one way. By the way, we started off with light drizzle. It is now proper rain. That's the official term on the, well, it's just rain. That's the term that's been used by the server. So this is definitely heavy, which is why we're seeing so much standing water, why we're seeing so many drivers struggle. Kyle Feldes, I think, is just an act of survival, isn't it? Trying to pick his braking zones. He can't think too much about where he's going to place his car. He's just going to have to try and keep it on the track ultimately. Nicky Taylor is likely to get past. He just wants to keep ahead of Eric Axelsson and hold on to that podium position. But they fight for 2nd place. After an hour and a half of racing is going to go down between 3 drivers. Elliot Dalton-Ayres is not the driver that started on pole position. It's not the driver that dominated the first 45 minutes. That was Oliver Gibson, who stuck down in 6th place, throwing it off the circuit nearly every single lap when we were watching him. He may have improved himself a little bit better since then. But it is Elliot Dalton-Ayres who's leading the way. Then it's this fight for 2nd position, which, to be fair to Kyle Feldes, is he's holding on to for this lap, at least, as they go around the carousel. Nicky Taylor so smooth on the power, so smooth on the steering wheel as well. Can he get the drive off and go down towards Canada Corner in the lead? It's where he overtook Eric Axelsson, who goes off the road behind. It'll probably be a 2-horse race going down towards Canada Corner. I thought maybe Eric Axelsson was going to try and follow him through. Kyle Feldes, how much will he be sweating now? Going side by side, door to door, going towards Canada Corner with 2 minutes to go. Nicky Taylor touching the grass on the outside, but he's going to have the inside. He's done this move once or twice already, but Kyle Feldes goes into the back of him. Luckily, just gives him a nudge over the apex. Doesn't spin Nicky Taylor out at all. Kyle Feldes just missing the braking zone. Very, very easily done in the wet, especially when you got a car straight in front of you. But Nicky Taylor gets that 2nd position. And now the fight is on for 3rd between Kyle Feldes and Eric Axelsson, because Lewis, I believe Nicky's going to drive away with this.
I think he is. You can see Eric pushing the limit at every corner and every acceleration zone. He's been sideways so far on this lap, but Elliot's nearly 1 minute and 10 seconds in front of these guys. He gained 1.3 seconds on Nicky on the last lap. So
well, Nicky was stuck behind.
Yeah, this... Oh, no!
Oh, no! Disaster! Eric Axelsson goes into the back of Kyle Feldes and then spins himself as well. I was about to say, I'm sure he'll let Kyle Feldes through, but I don't think that's even going to be needed. Where is Kyle? There is a long way back. Well, it's not a long way back to Josh Martin, but it's luckily enough for both drivers to get back onto the circuit and in the correct order. Josh Martin is a long way back now, isn't he? 16 seconds, and that's after their spin. Well, 9 seconds after their spin sort of thing. But Kyle Feldes and Eric Axelsson having it coming together. This will be not the last lap, because Elliot Dalton-Ayres is so far ahead of everyone that he's only got 3 corners left to go. He's going into Canada Corner now. So he's probably going to get across. Oh, actually, it's going to be very close, isn't it? Whether the timer ticks down. We might have to focus on Elliot Dalton-Ayres as Eric Axelsson misses the braking zone again. Maybe not, I'm not sure. 18 seconds left to go as they go through the final couple of corners here, Elliot Dalton-Ayres. And I reckon he's going to cross the line. I reckon the checkered flag might come out actually.
Just
here
about.
With 7 seconds. Yeah,
I think he's slowed it down.
Yeah, he's been superb, utterly superb in these wet conditions, and that really was going to be the test all along. And the last 45 minutes, Elliot Dalton-Ayres dominates the VRRC LMP3 Enduro race here at Road America. Nicky Taylor, who has been just so entertaining to watch in the all race, actually, because he's been very much a recovery driver. He's going to come across the line in about a minute's time to take home 2nd place. Kyle Feldes and Eric Axelsson going pretty much nose to tail as Eric tries to get that final podium position. Eric wants that VRRC hat. You can smell it in the air as Kyle Feldes tries to hold on to it. He looks like it's going to be... Nicky Taylor's about to cross the line. He's 15 seconds ahead of these guys. as they head towards the final couple of corners. This is Canada corner, one of the best overtaking opportunities in the entire track. Eric Axelsson doesn't make it happen there. Carl Belvis manages to survive. He only needs to survive one more corner. It's the corner that Nicky Taylor's currently going through. He's going to come across the line to take second place. A flash of the light, and I'm sure a very happy, if not slightly sweaty, Nicky Taylor, because he has had to work very, very hard for that podium position. Carl Belvis is coming around the final corner. He's a second ahead of Eric Axelsson. He's going to take the final podium position. A great drive by Carl Belvis, considering he had nowhere near the pace in the last 30 minutes or so. Eric Axelsson threw everything at it. He's only good enough for fourth place, though. Josh Martin comes home in fifth. Oliver Gibson, you wouldn't have thought this after 45 minutes, comes home in sixth position. He threw away a pit stop by putting on the medium tyres, coming in 2 laps late and sticking the wets on. After that, he struggled to keep the car on the circuit. I have to say, I think it's got a lot brighter out there. There was a thunderstorm once upon a time. Don't know if we're still in the midst of that thunderstorm, but it looks like the track may be drying up just a touch. Rich Hayden in 8th place, the final car to finish on the lead lap. What a race. What a finale and a culmination of fantastic driving, close action, and realistically, just an amazing race, Lewis.
Absolutely, yeah. It did go to heavy thunderstorms at the end there, so
Wow.
That's why they were in the 2-minute 26s and up. But yeah, what a drive from Elliott. Absolutely dominated it. I mean, he could have won by over 1 minute and 10 seconds, but he actually slowed it down on that last lap when he was passing Reece Bell. He slowed it down so that it wouldn't be an extra lap. But wow, they've taken so long to get around the cool down lap. It's cleared up again. The storm's gone.
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it, really? The road temperature as well was going absolutely berserk through all of that. Anyway, enough about the weather. We'll go to a very quick advert break, I believe, and then we're going to have a chat to our podium sitters. We'll be back in a minute's time. Well, after 90 minutes of blood, sweat and tears, one driver has come out on top, and that was Elliott Dalton-Ayres. Elliott, that was, well, frankly, superb. Once the rain started coming down, there didn't seem to be anybody else who can touch you, and I know there's a driver in 3rd place that would have something to say about that, but realistically, that was absolutely stunning by yourself. What was the difference? How can you manage to just turn it on during the wet and maybe not during the dry?
I mean, I was running my wet setup throughout the dry with just slick tyres on, obviously, because Rich was mentioning about it raining, and like if I was running my dry setup, I would just been doing circles the entire time. So I ran the wet setup, and that seemed to be quite fast. So yeah.
They seem to be very fast indeed, and maybe that's what Oliver Gibson was doing, unfortunately, because he was rapid in the dry and then couldn't keep it on the circuit for the wet period. But more on your race, was it a bit dull in the end? What was driving in the rain like? Actually, not was it dull, because I'm sure it wasn't, but was it very different to driving in the dry? Did you have to really concentrate for the entire 45 minutes?
I mean, absolutely, yeah. It's completely different. You have to take about everything apart from the racing line. And then that's how you find a smidge of grip, and that allows you to get quick. But I don't think there was at the front. I don't think I had much screen time, so I don't think I'll be showing the Phoenix logo very much. But I hope that through the win and through me talking like this, that people will be able to hear of Phoenix and join for our cause, because it's a brilliant cause.
I was going to say, this is your opportunity to plug that as well. I will let you do that after one quick question that you sort of brought up there, is the fact that in most racing games and simulators and everything like that, the simulation world hasn't really caught up to the fact that driving on the racing line in the wet is actually supposed to be really slow. It really isn't. You're not supposed to be able to do it in real life. So you're not supposed to do it in the simulation. Or has it taken a step forward since I've last really delved into it? Or were you trying to drive offline, and was it grippier offline?
I mean, I've never really driven on the sim in the wet, apart from that time, obviously. But when I was out in the kart and it was wet, it feels very similar. You're turning, but it's not doing anything until the last second, and then it goes round. So yeah, I definitely think it's taken a step forward.
Oh, fantastic. And you mentioned Phoenix then as well a couple of times. You did get a little bit of airtime because we were talking about how dominant you were basically in the second half. But what sort of give it a little bit of, give us a sales pitch. What is Phoenix all about?
So Phoenix is all about getting mentally ill people and disabled people into sim racing, and maybe they can follow their passion into motorsport. But Stu and Reese, absolutely amazing. Who's started Phoenix, and just their cause of helping disabled and mentally ill people into this is just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, because it's quite good to have a sort of fantastic to have a focus, isn't it, and that sort of thing, and a passion and stuff. And you see like the Team Brits and everything like that, the sort of work they do in real life motorsport and everything like that. But not everybody can afford to go into real life motorsport. So the passion and the drive and the focus to go into simulator can really help, especially sort of from the mental illness side, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, fantastic stuff. So, Elliot Dalton, big congratulations. You get yourself an NGK remote control car, I believe. So there you go. It's something to go home and celebrate for, I'm sure. I can't wait to see pictures and videos of it on social media if you're zooming around the house or something.
Oh, it will be.
I was going to say, can't wait. You'll have to make sure you tag VRRC and Instagram and stuff like that when you put that online. But fantastic stuff. Well done, Elliot.
Thanks, Jack.
Right, now Lewis going to move on to our second place man and the winner of the polo t-shirt, and that is Kyle Felvis. Lewis, take it away.
It wasn't Kyle, it was Nicky, but we moved Jack.
Oh, no, it was Nicky in the end. It was Nicky. It's because he's... Oh, dear, it's Nicky in the end.
Kyle would happily...
on top of the things there, Jack.
It's because Nicky's third in the Discord channel. Oh,
Yeah, Nicky, P2 for you. As a racing driver, I know you won't be too happy with second, but overall, how was that for you?
Well, to be fair, I'll take P2 because after the first lap, it all went to poo basically. Because I went down into the hairpin, thought I missed my braking point, then realised I hadn't, then got all crossed up and literally tried to avoid Eric and just had nowhere to go but into him basically. So I do apologise to Eric, but I lifted off. I tried to let him go ahead and then push on after that. I know it doesn't help because obviously I did effectively ruin his race, but yeah, it is what it is. I got past that, and then the first stages were okay. Obviously, I had comms with Kyle and going like lap times wise, and I was consistently doing about 2/10 or roughly the same lap times as Kyle, so I knew my pace was there. And just made my way through from the back. And when the rain started coming down, I think me, Kyle, and Elliot all know from driving karts. Well, that basically when it gets wet, it's if you try and race the normal line, you're just not going to go anywhere, and you're just going to spin up because the tires, obviously the rubber's down, and it's all slippery. So just try to basically break off line and then go around the outside and just keep it really, really smooth with steering, because any sharp steering input was just pushing the car on. So just kept it nice and smooth, kept it on the track, avoided every curb, because from the first stint on the wet, I knew that the minute I hit the curbs, it just shredded the tyre life. So I literally avoided all curbs. And then they held up a little bit longer, not massively, about a lap or two longer. So I could lean on them a bit. But other than that, just kept on the road and didn't do anything stupid past the Eric incident.
Now, obviously, you do real-life driving. How does the Assetto Corsa rain experience compare to the real-life rain racing experience?
Yeah, well, obviously, this is the first time I've actually had a race on Assetto in the wet, and it's the first time I've had the wet with Assetto actually working, because last time I tried it, it was literally just wet, and it's basically aesthetic. It wasn't doing anything with the actual track. But I'd say it comes in a very close second as a sim game behind Project Cars. I think Project Cars' weather is nailed beyond belief. Like, it's pretty much identical to real life. Whereas Assetto, that was really good because it's still you have to think about what you do in real life situations, and in the wet in real life I do prefer it. I am quicker in the wet normally, so yeah. So I just it plays into my element, and I just like driving it. And yeah, you've just got to be smooth and just calm. And if you stay smooth and calm, you should keep it on the road. And 95% of the time in the wet, if you keep it on the road, you will be fine, and other people will fall off the track, as we saw happen a few times where like Ollie and Eric went a tiny bit. But yeah, I just knew if I keep it on the road, then we'll be fine.
Well, well done, Nicky. How did you find the endurance format, actually, before we let you go? Because it's more of a new format that we tried. What did you think?
Yeah, well, when we previously tried it with like the 40-minute race in the touring car, I absolutely hated it because I had no pace, I didn't like it, I couldn't gel with it. In this scenario with this car and the track and the weather, I loved it. It like the first half an hour or so went a bit slow because once people like kind of got into a rhythm, but the minute the rain came in, it just livened it all up and it was fun. And you'd see like some drivers who aren't normally quick get quicker, and some of the lap cars who we lapped previously were actually keeping up with pace. So yeah, definitely with the wet, it's helping. Definitely with the endurance format, it's exciting when it's in this sort of format.
Well done, Nicky, and I hope we will see you in the touring cars in a couple of weeks' time.
You should do.
So
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Lewis and Nicky Taylor. I do apologise for getting the hopes up of our third place driver, Kyle Feldbus. Kyle, a big congratulations on holding on to that podium, because at one point towards the end there, it was looking a little bit tight, wasn't it, between you, Nicky and Eric?
Yeah, just a bit. I think it's because I pit one lap earlier and then my tyres went pop. They didn't really want to survive. And they dropped to 0 on the wet, and Nicky's were dropping, but not as quickly. And Nicky, he just was quite quick in the wet, and I was struggling for pace, really.
Well, you seem to be pretty quick in the dry, especially. I mean, in the dry, we hardly saw your car at all, really. It was amazing. You're sort of in no man's land there. What was it like? What did you prefer, the wet, the dry? Did it give you something to think about? Was the challenge enjoyable?
Yeah, I mean, I like the transition from the wet, from the dry to the wet. That was quite fun because
the drizzle.
The drizzle, yeah, we could call it that, because it was quite funny. Because me and Nicky, we were on our call, and he said, "Oh, I've got to pit this lap," and I said, "Oh, you watch it rain this lap," and it did as he came out the pits. So that made it quite interesting. And then I think it started tipping it down, and I think personally it rained a bit too much. I don't know what the race director was doing, but it should have been called off. It was too wet.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I'm sure he's listening. Don't you worry about a thing, Kyle. But yeah, it's fantastic. Is it something you would like to see? Maybe not to go full thunderstorm from dry to full thunderstorm in 20-minute race, but is it something you'd like to see maybe as a bit of a surprise in 20-minute championship races?
20-minute championship races, I think it would be brilliant. If it rains, 12 and a half minutes in, you get some light rain, then you've got the concept of do you pit, do you not? Like, who's going to brave it out, who's going to not? And that adds quite a cool element to the racing. And I mean, it makes it more interesting than just the dry races we've had for the past God knows how long. But yeah, the rain is cool, but not that much rain.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it could spice things up if needs be, and maybe the race director will be able to pray to the PC gods, or AC gods, I should say, and make those sort of things happen every so often. But Kyle, you get yourself a nice VRRC hat for all the sunny days that we're currently having. But apparently it's actually quite nice down where you are, so maybe you'll actually get to use it at work.
I don't know who's told you that information, but I think they're a bit wrong.
Well, Adrian says it's blue sky down in Devon, so...
Well, we're in Dorset, so that's probably the first start. No, it's not sunny, I'll tell you that.
Well, with any luck, you'll hopefully just wear the hat to keep the rain off your head then instead. But fantastic stuff, Carl. Congratulations on the third place, and I'm sure we'll be speaking to you at the touring cars.
Maybe, maybe not. We'll see.
Well, fingers crossed we'll have you there. Always entertaining, Kyle. Thank you very much, and congratulations on the third place. Right. That is all they wrote for the time being for the VRRC LMP3. I'm going to have a very quick chat, a little bonus interview actually, with Rich Hayden, because he's still in the Discord. And to be honest, this is a brand new, we've thrown quite a few brand new sort of things at VRRC today. And we've got the endurance. We've not really done the LMPs before. We haven't done the weather before. Rich, how do you think is your goal? I mean, I know it takes a while to digest. You were racing after all. But from a racing perspective, and a VRRC perspective, what's your opinion on this evening?
Well, we're going to leave the racing perspective because, as per usual, my luck doesn't hold out and I got rear-ended twice in the first few laps. But anyway, let's move on from that. Yeah, that was good. Interesting. We're going to learn something from that. The transitions for the weather worked well. The only thing that didn't work well was the amount of water on the track. So believe it or not, when it was at its wettest, that was just rain, nothing more than just rain. So we started with obviously dry, moving into windy and overcast, into drizzle, then rain, and then the last 5 minutes were thunderstorm. Yeah, nobody could keep it on the track and just rain. So that was a little bit of a learning curve. So we'll do some tweaking with the grip levels and come back with something better.
Is it something you can see that will play a part in the touring cars? Are we going to wait for it to appear again in another championship's time?
I will only put this into a championship when we've nailed it, and we haven't nailed it yet. So the last thing I want to do is affect somebody in a full championship with. I mean, that was too much rain. There was too much loss of grip in rain. So we need to work on how we tweak that. If we can get it sorted before touring car, we may have a little bit of drizzle. Yeah, I don't know yet. It definitely will be in our championships going forward because I think today's been a successful test, as in we've learned a lot. So yeah, everybody's seemed to enjoy it. It was a little bit too slippy at the end, but like I said, we learn from it and we move on.
Well, of course, there are more after the next championship. There will be more fun events, won't there, where we could potentially have a bit of a play around with it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, yeah, looking forward to seeing how it may play a part in that. And the endurance aspect, well received from going into the event, and obviously you haven't had a chance to speak to people afterwards. But...
I believe so far, and we're already planning our next one. So I think what we'll do after touring car, which is obviously an 8-week championship, we'll have a week off, and then another. After that week off, we'll do another endurance race similar to this, but we will probably do multi-class next time as well.
Oh, funky. We are starting to get adventurous, aren't we?
Aren't we just?
I'm looking forward to it. Getting spice in there. Right, thank you very much, Rich.
Yes, guys.
I would say congratulations on the race, but obviously it didn't really go your way. But well done on organising a fantastic event. It seems to have gone down quite well.
Thank you.
Right, I don't believe there's that much that we have left to talk about because we don't have a championship table to talk about. We don't really have much else to do, therefore, because we did all the what's coming up things after the qualifying. But if you need a little reminder, there's a fun race this Sunday, which should be, oh, there we go, it's on screen. I was going to do it off the top of my head, but fantastic, I don't have to. 8 p.m. British summertime, fun race around Watkins Glen in a Ferrari GT3 car. If that's the... Rich, is that the same GT3 Ferrari that we were doing at the Natera event?
No, this is the 296. We used which is the new one. So we used the 488.
Oh, right, fair enough. Well, still, I was going to say the one I used was very good. So this is an upgrade. It'll be even better. So
it is a great car.
Yeah, fantastic. So if you want to get involved, you don't need to be a VRRC member. If you want to just get involved and see how quick you are compared to the other VRRC members, then the fun race is a fantastic opportunity to do that before you then enter into a full championship. There's also the time attacks, which is another good opportunity to do exactly what I just said. See how quick you are in comparison to other members here in the community. It's around Anglesey in a Radical. It runs for 2 weeks and it started at the end of July. So it's probably got another week and a half to go or so. Maybe just another week, actually. Fixed setup, so you don't have to worry about everybody knowing how to set a car up or anything like that, but you can just get out there, do some lap times. In fact, you can do as many lap times as you like in the time attacks over the course of the 2 weeks. See how quickly you can learn the track, see how quickly you can adapt, and see how close you are to the other drivers. Even the likes of Lewis are putting in times like that, and he's very quick, so you can get an impression of how close you can be. And last thing, but not least, absolutely not least, is in 2 weeks' time we kick off the Touring Cars Season 5, I believe it is, with all the cars listed down below. Very similar in terms of appearance to the Season 4, but we've tweaked and edited all the handling models so they are running smoother and sweeter than ever before. And we've chucked the Cooper in there as well, because basically it's a very popular car. It's also a touring car, and it runs very nicely. So everything has been bopped. Everything is looking good and running true, I believe. So we've got a full European tour on offer, and it starts, of course, in 2 weeks' time. So we have a week off, basically. 2 20 minutes and a 15-minute qualifying. So we're back to the original format, back to the tried and trusted. And by the sounds of it, probably not going to have dynamic weather unless we can get it all dialed in beforehand. And I'm certainly hoping that we can do that, or they can do that. I'll be honest, I don't ever touch it. But the likes of Rich and Lewis and Eric and stuff, people like that can get it sorted. But that's all it is from me and this LMP endurance event. Fantastic. Thank you very much to everyone who tuned in to take part. A big thank you to the likes of Lewis Edwards, who's jumped into the commentary box and did the fantastic broadcasting, for Rich and VRRC for putting the event on. All the drivers were brilliant to watch. It was very, very entertaining, and obviously a big lesson and learning curve for the likes of Rich and everybody else for how much rain to put on the track. And obviously everybody at home, big thank you to you for tuning in and watching as well. My name's been Jack Oliphant, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time for the start of the Touring Cars Season 5.
Woo!